All right, welcome everyone. We have got another special podcast for you today. It is my man Tyson Apostol, Survivor champion from 2013. He's been on several times that show. We're going to get to hear a lot about that, poker, and more. Tyson, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I mean, as well as anybody can be doing in these weird times, we're quite blessed and have been safe and happy and healthy. And apart from a little bit of cabin fever, we're doing good. How about
Yeah,
you?
well, I'm good, man. Same thing. Again, sort of my overall day to day doesn't change too much. If anything, poker and just the content sort of ramped up, and I almost feel bad saying that. Where it's like for me, it doesn't really impact me. And if anything, more I feel more focused and motivated, and like in a one place, not traveling as much and just dialed in. But yeah, crazy times, and it's just a crazy time. What are we gonna say? It's different. The world is different. We're gonna cover that. I want to talk about you. I have so many questions, so many things. Poker we'll try to leave a little time for, but first and foremost, tell us who you are, where you come from, and sort of what's your you're growing up. I think you were born in Utah. I believe raised Mormon. Just give me a little bit of your sort of upbringing and what got you into your sort of give me your life story in a few minutes, Tyson. That's what I'm trying to say.
Life story in a few minutes.
Yes.
Okay. I grew up in Utah, like the center of Mormon, grew up Mormon, born and raised, like typical, stereotypical Mormon upbringing. Swam throughout my life, raced mountain bikes growing up, and played a bunch of other sports, but those were the two because those were the ones my parents pretty much pushed me into. Those were the ones that they took interest in. So I just gravitated towards those. Was one of the top junior mountain bikers in the country, under 18. And did some World Cup racing and stuff at that age as well. And then swam in college for a year, went on a Mormon mission to the Philippines for 2 years, learned to speak Tagalog, came back, didn't want to swim, didn't want to go to school, went back to cycling, but became a road cyclist, moved to Europe, raced 3 years amateur, 3 years professional in Europe. And then I just got sick of it. My body was like tired and I was mentally burned out on it as well. Moved back to the US. My dad, a Survivor super fan, encouraged me to try out for the show because I was just a bum and I had time and energy and he thought I'd be good at it. And so I sent them an audition tape just like as a joke, not even really thinking I'd hear back from them. And I think that attitude is actually what helped me get on the show, is the fact that I just treated it like a joke. And then from there, Survivor opened a bunch of doors. It opened poker, got involved with Run It Up Reno with Jason Somerville, started playing a bunch more poker. And now I'm here. I've been on the show 4 times, Survivor, and played a bunch of poker, some big tournaments, went to the PSPC last year or 2 years ago now in the Bahamas, and got into pickleball. Sick of running, sick of riding, sick of swimming, and pickleball is my new form of exercise and activity, and I love it. And that's, other than that, family life, married, 2 small girls, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I get to spend
I love it.
time
You
with
cut
them
out your
is
mic.
also there.
Your
Did we
mic's
hit it all?
cutting in and out a bit. Is it choppy? Can you hear me clearly? You're having a bit of it's a bit choppy. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if that's your end or mine. Tyson, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. It was a bit choppy towards the end, but I could hear your mic was cutting in and out a bit. So, well, when I say your life story, I want to give a little just background on that, and that's great because all these things we could spend a lot of time on is super interesting. But let's just dive in with. So you did get a swimming scholarship. That you went to BYU.
Yep.
What was that like? And did you know you were such a good swimmer growing up, or did it kind of happen fast? Where in middle school, high school, you're like, wow, like you developed, or were you like world class all the way when you first started?
No, I wasn't. I was like, I think my natural ability is endurance. And so other than that, I'm not like, I wasn't right when I hit the pool. I was fine. I was like average, but I put a lot of work in and probably trained a lot harder than the other guys. And so through high school, I started developing as becoming one of the top tier swimmers in the state of Utah. And And so that was, I mean, I definitely worked for that. It wasn't something that came naturally to me. And cycling, kind of the same thing. Like endurance is my superpower, and then I build everything around that. So cycling was the same. Like I could ride a bike forever, but I wasn't necessarily the best bike handler or the strongest sprinter or anything like that. But I developed into those things as I put effort into it. And yeah, so I swam at BYU. I only swam a year. Then I went on a Mormon mission and came home and was not interested in swimming anymore.
And
So
and how was that like? What was life like as a swimmer in college? Obviously, we've talked about this. One of my very close friends, Michael Phelps, of course, the guy, if you would know, and of swimming, done a few things, and I got to see a glimpse at that, and I had friends in high school who were swimmers. But what was the biggest jump between swimming in high school and college? Like, what were the schedules like? 'Cause it's so much early mornings, right? And it's a grind.
yeah,
It's intense, right?
high school was earlier because high school had to be before school. And in college, it was almost a part of your school. That's like the reason you're there. And so the college experience as an athlete, they cater everything around your schedule as an athlete. So, you got to register classes before the rest of the students, and you got to do things like that. So we actually, in high school, I swam at 5 a.m. to 7:30 in the morning every morning before school. And in college, I think we didn't start till like 7 or 7:30. So to me, that was a late wake up.
Right.
And then, but you put in a lot more miles and a lot more hours in college. I think the 2 weeks we had between winter semester and spring semester, we did 3 practices a day swimming in the pool and at 10 to 12,000 yards each session. And then weights and cross training on top of that. And so you were putting in, I probably like Wednesday, if you're familiar with NCAA rules, you are with athletics. At that time, I don't know if it's still the case. At that time, you were only allowed to, as a coach, you could only make mandatory 20 hours of workout time each week as a collegiate coach. So about Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, the coach would come through and say, "Hey guys, just to let you know, we hit our 20 hours this week. Thank you so much for showing up to practices Thursday night, Friday morning, Friday afternoon, Saturday morning, and Saturday afternoon. Those are all just optional practices that I'm really excited for you to all come to all of them." So that was pretty much the conversation every Thursday.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was like BYU? What was that like as a campus? I think Mormons. I feel like the term Mormon and understanding of what it means. And I actually saw a note where I think with Survivor, people were referencing that thank you for showing us in like a great light, or you got a lot of positive feedback, kind of like maybe some stigmas or things about if that's true or not. But I mean, just give me a little bit of an idea, like what Mormon life is in your, like how you would explain it, and maybe some misconceptions or what's true. Just kind of give me a little bit of a breakdown of like differences. And like, let's take Mormon life going to BYU. How would that be different than what you understood your friends that were not at another college like Utah or other places? What are some big differences?
So BYU has the honor code, which is like the moral rules and obligations you need to follow to be a student at the school, whether you're Mormon or not. And some of those include not having sex until you're married, no drinking, no smoking, none of that stuff, no coffee, no tea, things like that. And then to enforce some of those rules, like you weren't allowed in like the opposite genders dorms after like 10 p.m. And if you were at someone's dorm, the doors had to be open. There's a lot of like little rules like that. For me, it was still school, and I didn't live on campus. So it was, not as strict, but there was that, I didn't experience life on a different campus, and I wasn't dead set, even growing up Mormon, I wasn't dead set on going to BYU. It was just the school that like came at me with the most support and best offer for swimming, and was kind of the easiest decision. And I also didn't necessarily love the idea of going to college in the first place. So the fact that it was easy and they were paying for me to go to school and swim made it an easy decision.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And Was that, so what was it basically, did you decide once you were there, was it just like something you weren't super into, or you said you only were there for what, 1 year or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever think school was necessarily my path, but after high school, that's the path that everybody takes, like go to college and get a degree. And like, even in high school, I remember hearing things like, only 8% of people who start college end up graduating. I'm like, no, it can't be that hard. I'm going to prove that statistic wrong. And then I get there and I'm like, it's not because people can't graduate college. It's because they don't want to. And so for me, I think I had come to the realization I didn't want to swim anymore. And the only reason I was even at school was because of swimming. Right. And if I'm going to stay in school, they're training me to get a career, which I also don't want. And so why am I staying to train? Why am I staying somewhere I don't want to be to train for something I don't want to do? And so at that point, I just stopped going. That was like within like a week of deciding I didn't want to swim anymore. I dropped out of school too.
And what about family, parents? What was it like? Was it a tough decision? Did you have to talk about it? Did people try to talk you out of it, or that was just your path and you knew that was what you wanted to, what you were?
Well, because I was swimming and I was on scholarship and stuff, I didn't feel like I had, wasted my parents' money or anything like that.
Right.
And I didn't even tell them initially. I just got a job at a ski resort and was like, I'm going to learn to ski really good this year instead. And so for me, it wasn't. And my parents, I think probably had an idea of who I was at that time. And by the time I told them and then had plans and aspirations to move to Europe and become a pro cyclist, they were like, I remember having a conversation with my mom and dad and they were like, "Hey, we support everybody through school. You did your own thing with swimming and that was awesome. If you want to become a pro cyclist and you're planning to move to Europe and race to become a pro, that's your school now. So we will support you and help you as much as we can while you're an amateur over there trying to get a professional contract." And so my parents were really, really supportive of me taking my own path and doing something that I loved and preferred over the typical path, which isn't a bad path. It just was not for me. I think that school is definitely important for a lot of people's passions and occupations. And so that's, yeah. So my parents, yeah, it could have definitely been harder without their love and support, but they were good.
Okay. Well, I love it. Also, I just put the tweet out right now, letting people know that we got Tyson live in the flesh. So you also, if you're here, you can ask a question. We are going to give away $111 party poker ticket at the end. And
do I have a chance at winning that?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You are eligible, Tyson.
Okay, cool.
I would actually, if you win it though, I'll give an additional one just because, like, that would be kind of crazy. But you did win Survivor. You are kind of an anomaly in general, I think, in what you do and just how you go hard at everything. And if you were to win this, I wouldn't be shocked, and we'll just double it up. I think that's the only fair thing we could do. But I wish you luck on that as well. So you are eligible. You can get your equity, right? There's about
may as well
1%. Might as well try to get that done. So we will get that out. And again, this will be on all the different podcast outlets. Happy that we're doing it live and we get to be on YouTube. So, all right, cycling. Tell me about cycling. Now what? You find your passion. You go to college. You get a scholarship. You decide not for you. You want to cycle. What is this? Give me a time frame on the years. Is this around Lance Armstrong time of like the hype? And this is like, what year is this?
The hype and the retirement and the return and the downfall.
Wow.
And I am. So I grew up mountain bike racing. And I raced as a junior all throughout until college. And it was like a weird time in the 90s where there was so much money in mountain biking, right, and schools were starting to give scholarships. Like I think CSU had some cycling program, but for me, I was like, mountain biking's so new. It's not an Olympic sport yet. I don't think that it's really my path, even though I preferred doing it to swimming. For some reason, I thought that swimming was going to be the better direction for me in school. And in hindsight, I wish I would have gone with a mountain biking scholarship or something. But when I quit swimming, all the money as in cycling, or more of the money, a more stable income is in road racing. So I switched to road and moved to Europe with my dad's help. He had some connections over there and found a club for me to race with initially. And then I just had two bikes and a suitcase full of clothing. And I got on a plane within a month of deciding I was going to move to Europe and race bikes. And truth be told, I think I'm past the statute of limitations. I lived illegally in Europe for 6 years.
Jeez. Tyson, I'll make an exclusive break on the pod.
I never had a visa or anything. I just was living off my passport.
But so how does that work though? When you come back, there's no question, or there's no like, they don't really
not then. No. So I moved over there. I actually got on a flight November 2001. And if you remember, September 2001.
Yeah. November,
I flew over with like 3 people on a gigantic airplane. There was nobody on the flight.
Wow.
And touched down, had somebody I'd never met pick me up at the airport, take me to an apartment. And from there, I just started just fully immersed in the cycling culture and the cycling world. And it was, it was crazy. Like, I don't even know if I'd have the guts to do that now. Like what I did, I just left everyone I knew with just bikes, and the internet wasn't what it is now back then. Like, it was harder to connect with people. You could write emails and stuff, but like doing a face-to-face video call was not happening. And so I pretty much just like on my own raced amateur for a couple of years, worked my way up, would sign with a better team each step that would give me more support. So there was like sponsorship stuff and prize money and things. And then I'd catch like some odd ends, like English jobs where I was either like helping people put things into English or teaching English, or, just I was going to dinner parties just to speak English and getting paid a little bit to do stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, so give me a look at the landscape of money at that point. Like, so when you were, what was the goal when you boarded that plane? What were the dreams? Were you trying to be Lance Armstrong? Were you going to try to go Tour de France? Is it different? What was like the upside? Like, what was realistically, is something you knew would be a grind, or did you think you could like pop over there and rip one off? It's not like poker, right? Like, it's hard to just like win.
It's hard. It's hard to win. I mean, if you are,
but you know what I'm saying? Like, you could ship a tournament and be like, and have a basic idea. You can't just like hop on a cycle and take down a race.
Right. And I was naturally gifted with endurance and climbing in general. And so for me, I was like, I think I got this, and, but I was naive. Like I didn't know much about the drugs in the sport and things like that. You hear wind of it. But I knew it was going to be a grind, but I thought, like, I can do this.
Well,
and
that's your limitations, Tyson. I'm not implying, but speaking of drugs and what happened there,
I was always clean.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
I was always clean.
In terms of like, was that something though? Were you seeing a lot of it, or did you really not even know this was a thing? Or like, was it like you look over and guys were ripping needles and stuff?
Oh, we'll get into it. We'll get into it a little bit. I got over there. I was racing, money wise, my goal. I mean, obviously the dream, well, like a poker player, the dream is, World Series of Poker or ship something for 5 million or something like that. And the dream with cycling is, maybe the Tour de France, definitely. But like, on the world level, just to be noticed and seen. And then you pretty much have your path carved out and a career made from it. You win a few stages of a Tour de France, or you win a world championships, or you win, something at the Tour of Italy or whatever. And then that's big. That's like shipping a huge multi-million-dollar tournament. And so that was there, but also it was just like, I want to make a good living racing bikes and doing something outside and active and something that I excel at and things like that. And there was a lot, like if I could go back and do it again, there's a lot of things I would change, but I think you looking back at your 20-year-old self, the same, like I went too hard too early as a young cyclist. Like I was putting in so many hours. I was just excited to be there. I was so positive about it that I burned myself out by, overtraining, overworking my body and things like that. I signed a deal with a small team called Volksbank out of Austria and raced with them for 3 years. And And at that time, they'd already have the Festina scandal, which was a huge drug scandal in the 90s, drop. And so teams were no longer, for the most part, teams were no longer trying to give their riders drugs. The riders had to do that on their own. So in a lot of the contracts would be worded as such, kind of saying like, if you get caught doing drugs, you're taking the downfall, not the team. Mm-hmm. We are not in charge of supplying you with anything, and we don't condone the use of drugs. So so that was the contract. And at that time too, a team like that couldn't afford a drug scandal. So if they got a whiff of anybody doing any drugs, that they would try and send that rider off quietly rather than have that rider test positive and then have the team fall apart. So a bigger team that has more money and can do more things is a little bit different, but this was a small team. So I did see some things like there's like secret cutout compartments in refrigerators and storing stuff. There's mini centrifuges. There's bottles of saline solution to thin down your blood. If you're like, I saw a lot of that stuff and I knew what all of it was for by the end there. So at some point though, I kind of, even in my mind, I'm the type of person that even entering a poker tournament, like I'm probably not the most talented poker player here, but I can envision myself winning. And that's how cycling was too. It was like, I'm not doing drugs, but I can still envision myself winning. And I think at the point where I could no longer picture myself winning a bike race because it was too demanding and I was too tired was the point where I had to stop.
What was like your best finish, or what were some highlights like, and what was like talking about like a role on the team? Cause is it like racing, like certain guys, you kind of like they're guys are supposed to win, or you're supposed to draft or help guys like
correct. Yeah. So it's a team sport and all the glory goes to the team captain, the leader, and each race, somebody can be different, leading, or, the team's working for so-and-so. So if you're like one of the team captains or something, then you have your opportunity to win races as a workhorse, which I was hired to be. That if you found yourself in a position to win a race, great. But most of the time you were working too hard early on to find yourself in that position. So most of my role was either helping the team captain get through some tricky spots in the race, whether it was up and over some hills that were going to be fast, or whether or not, or if a small group got away, I would help chase it down or try to make sure I was in a group, and so that we were represented as a team there. I didn't win any races as a professional, and honestly, about 90% of professional riders never win a professional race in their career because they're workhorses. They're working for a leader.
Right.
And I had some top 10 finishes in Italy and Switzerland. And other than that, just being able to race with, the best of the best. Like if you name any top rider from from 2000 to 2008, 2009, I have been in a race with that rider.
It's pretty
cool. Yeah. So it was like really cool. And like all these people I'm seeing in cycling magazines is the same as poker. Like all these people you see in poker magazines, all of a sudden you're playing poker with them your first time. And that's how cycling felt to me too at the time.
And where was Lance? How did that fit in? Like when did the scandal break out, and what was his peak? I forget his trajectory.
So Lance's trajectory, I think his first tour was 99.
Okay.
And then he started winning all the time. And he won. Did he win 5 in a row? No, he won. How many did he win? 7?
Yeah.
7 in a row. So he won 7 in a row. And so that would have brought him to 2006. I raced pro 2005, 2006, 2007. So I raced kind of when he retired, and then he came back, and that's when all that stuff happened. But I was racing for a small team in Belgium in 2000, 2002 I raced in Switzerland, 2003, 2004 I raced in Belgium, and a lot of the guys that worked for the team worked for the U.S. Postal Service, and they told us some stories. And so already at that time, I was jaded with the whole U.S. Postal Service. And then anytime I'd come back to the U.S., everybody would be like, Lance Armstrong, he's got to be your hero, right? And I was like, actually, I don't hear that many good things about him, if we're really being honest. And people's minds were blown. They couldn't even like fathom that any of that was happening. So I just didn't talk about it, because it was just like, what's the point of having this conversation? It's like having a religious conversation with somebody who doesn't believe the same thing, or a political conversation. It was just like, Lance is the hero no matter what, and anything disparaging you say against him, nobody will believe. And so it was just like, you know what? Yeah, I don't have anything really to say. And
how do you think though that all shook out with like how did that affect the sport when that news broke? Was it so publicly, so much press and stuff, that it actually brought excitement to it, or did it just sort of like kill it, where like people were just like, man, this is like, all right, this guy's doing incredible things, it's crazy, but the sport got kind of looked at negatively, like this is like a thing where everyone's doing it and it's kind of like just bad?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, part of Armstrong's excuse was that everyone was doing it, and that's what anybody who's doing drugs in that sport is saying, that, but that's their justification for it, which is not the case, because I wasn't doing it. So what am I next in line for the Tour de France victories of 99 to 2000? Like, there's people that were clean, and I can attest to that. I was not the only one clean. And it did shake the sport pretty hard. But the thing is that Armstrong built the sport up so much, and I'm certain that the governing body of cycling helped him cover things up, because they were all effectively doubling their audience by having an American be the greatest cyclist at the time, And so for them, like, money-wise, it's an easy decision to keep this guy around if you can. And so I think he brought way more to the sport than he did damaging it, but it did take a big hit. I mean, a lot of countries decided not to air cycling on TV. A lot of teams shut down because sponsors pulled out, and it was a tough time. But I listened to a Freakonomics podcast a while ago on sumo wrestling, and how there was a big scandal in sumo wrestling where all the top guys were throwing matches to each other because you had to have a certain win percentage to stay in the top tier, which got you a certain amount of money. And they found it, and it blew up, and everybody was upset about it. And these guys got like in trouble. But over time, people forget, and it reverted back to the same thing. And cycling's on that same trajectory. It's like, they have to at least appear to be clean, or appear to be doing everything they can in their power to keep the sport clean up to, a few years. People forget about it. People get excited about it again. People convince themselves that every rider there, or most of them, are clean. And then it reverts back to, and that's human nature too. It's like, everybody wants, that little edge, and they push the line of what's legal and what's not legal, and convince themselves that other people are only beating them because they're doing something illegal. So they then convince themselves to do something illegal to get their edge as well. And so I don't fault anybody for that. It wasn't the path for me at the time. I'm older now, and looking back on it, I don't know. I think for me, I have a good life. I've always had a good life. I've had a supportive and loving family, and taking the risk of drugs, either that would maybe harm me, or also, bring a lot of shame to everyone and disappoint a lot of people. Whereas you're a potato farmer from an Eastern Bloc country who's feeding 70 of your relatives with your paychecks every month. Like, there's a little bit, that guy has more in it than someone like me, it's just my dream and my passion. And so everybody's different. Everybody makes different decisions, and I can't fault people for doing that. It is disappointing for me, and I do feel like people like Armstrong did take something from me because I was racing clean. But then again, I had the opportunity to cheat, and I didn't. And so maybe I'm the fool. I don't know.
Yeah, it's well, and I guess just thinking about games, and you like poker. We've met, actually run it up a few times, which we'll want to make sure we cover some. But talking about Survivor, which I want to spend a fair chunk of time on. Obviously, very interesting. You compete at, how many is it? 3 or 4? You've been on
4.
4 different Survivors. That's pretty wild. So I do want to, before we get into Survivor and talking about sort of the game aspect and what's within the parameters and what's right and wrong and all that, I want to talk about the marriage boot camp thing. So this came after Survivor, is that right? Or what is it?
Yeah, I'd been on Survivor 3 times, and then I went on marriage boot camp.
And I'm not familiar with this show actually, but this is on
Good.
what network? And it sounds exciting. I mean,
yeah, it's on We Network.
Okay.
We TV. And I mean, we got a call and an offer to go on the show, me and my then girlfriend. Okay. And it was a lot different than Survivor in the fact that it's not scripted, but they do definitely ask you to bring the drama, and they do ask you to, act maybe a way that you wouldn't have normally acted just to, get a rise or something like that. And so it was a lot different landscape than what Survivor was. Survivor is pretty much like, hey, Tyson, we like you. We like what you do and we appreciate your work. So get out there and be the most you can be. And marriage boot camp was like, okay, you're going to answer this question wrong because it's going to piss these people off and this and that. So it was a lot different. It was an experience for me for sure.
And I guess, you said now girlfriend, you did get married, and I think actually during the show, if I have it right, and like, was this already, were you and her close to the fiance getting married stage, or did this help at all or hurt, or was it just no difference, or what? How long were you dating when you came on the show?
We'd been dating a long time already. We'd probably been together 5 years, 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And we were already getting close to marriage anyways. But they called us. They wanted me because I was the smart ass from Survivor. And we said, we don't really have any conflict. And they said, oh, we'll come up with something, and then put us on the show. So it was definitely an eye opener for me of how a lot of reality TV works, because I was not aware that, I mean, they would stage things and stuff like that. And it's fine. It was entertaining and it was entertainment. But if I could do that over again, I would go a lot harder, because I feel like I was a little too tame on that show.
And what was the top prize, or what was the goal of it, to be the last, like, or was
there was no goal? We got paid to show up, and then we just rode out our 2 weeks and laughed all the way to the bank after that.
And are they trying to like cause like disruptions between you two? Is that what it is? They basically try to like ask awkward questions, or who you used to date, or whatever. They try to like they bring up tough situations. That's sort of the goal.
Exactly.
So do you have an agreement with your girlfriend at the time, going in like, hey, look, this could get weird. It's going to get a little rocky. Like, you've obviously been on shows at this point, and you're used to like a little bit of dynamics and maybe that world. Were you worried about her mentality, or how it could maybe shake you guys up potentially a little bit? Or was it just like, all right, this is just a formality, let's just run it and no worries?
Yeah, we just ran it at first because we were like, oh, it's a good payday, and it'll be interesting to be on a different show. And then when we got there were actually moments where production came to me and was like, hey, you got to answer these questions wrong in the little challenge thing we've got going on, the exercise we've got going today. Answer them wrong so that Rachel gets pissed. And I was like, okay, but I'm only going to answer them wrong. I have no problem answering them wrong and looking like a jerk on TV. Like, that's how I made most of my money. But I'm going to tell my girlfriend so that she is not completely shocked and weirded out by my answers. And they were like, okay, that's fair. So I just pulled Rachel aside and I was like, hey, they're telling me to answer all the questions wrong that I can tonight. Is that cool? Just, be ready. And now you have to be an actress. And she's like, okay. So it was fine. I think we went about it the right way in that respect, but it was definitely, for me was definitely, there's more times on that show where I was like, I want out of this thing right now than there was on Survivor in all 4 times I've been on Survivor.
Interesting. And that's sort of, I mean, I guess that's, people have to understand that too, right? That does happen a lot, like probably in shows, and there is some scripting, and it's fun and natural, but there is you got to always give things a grain of salt a little bit, or not
Correct.
people. Because how do you think that has impacted you? And do you worry about that? Like maybe your parents or friends or family, or just in general, that maybe certain shows or things or how you're portrayed, it's not really you, and that's going to be hard to shake at all? Or does that even, do you care? Is it just like part of the game and you just realize that's what it is?
I mean, the first time you go on, you don't understand that fully. I think you kind of have an idea, but you don't really understand. And the first time I was on the show, like I was really portrayed villainous, and like I said the things that I said on the show. So it's not like I have anybody to fault, but they definitely can, you're more of a single dimensional character on a TV show than you are as a person. And so the first time I was on Survivor, I was the villain, or one of the villains. And my parents were pretty shocked and quite disappointed, to be honest.
I got to say, my dad, who makes notes on every podcast, I watched the first ever Survivor, basically the whole season. It was an amazing show. Like, it just really caught my attention. It was fun. And it was like, I think I was in high school, and it was Richard Hatch, right? And the whole thing and how it was done. And it was just kind of like shocking TV. And then Big Brother came. But, my dad, even some of the questions he asked me to ask you, like in the way he worked, I could tell he was like genuinely perturbed by you a little, like upset. And I was in my mind, I haven't talked to me. It's his birthday today as well. So happy birthday, Dad. Thank you for the notes on the birthday, giving me a little extra to talk about here. But, he was, it's sort of like that. And I was in my head, I'm like, man, listen, I know Tyson. I met Tyson. That doesn't take me long to get a feel for someone. And I think you're genuinely one of the nicest guys I know. And there's just so much positive energy and a fun person. So like to hear my dad, who's like the most like, humble, or I should say, yes, a moral compass and just like integrity guy, to hear him like kind of triggered by you. I was like thinking, Tyson, what were you doing on some of these shows? My dad's like upset. Like he literally, his wording of his questions like had emotion in them. And I was like, man, like, wow, like I got to go back and watch this, because it's got to be a little crazy. And like you said, you were portrayed as a villain. So yeah, tell me about what that means and why that was. And I like asking 20 questions at once. So
yeah,
what, it's the Twitch streamer me. I can't help it. What do they kind of tell you that or egg you on, or do you know when you go in, or is it just kind of how it's like shakes out in your season? Who's what? Like, are you like kind of knowing that's like your role?
I mean, the first season, I think most people are oblivious. They don't really know. And then the seasons after that, you do kind of get a feel for it and kind of know like what your role and how you're going to be cast. And I think that's part of the learning curve of going back and on Survivor a bunch of times. And the first season, actually, when I went out, so as you're getting cast for the show, they put a casting agent who's like your coach. That's kind of like, here's what you got to do to make good TV and this and that. And I remember the casting agent was just like, listen, there's two ways to win this show. You win the money, bag the millie, go home and disappear. Or you go as hard as you can so that even if you don't win, you get another shot at it. And so me going into that season, I was like, I don't want to have regrets watching back in moments where I should have said something and stayed quiet because I didn't want to cause controversy, only to look back and be like, I was the invisible man on the show because I chose to bite my tongue every single step of the way trying to win the money. And then I didn't win the money. So now I just have this regret of not showing who I am or how hard I'm willing to fight, and then also not winning the money. And so I went in just like, I'm going balls to the wall as hard as I can. I'm going to open my mouth every chance I get to say whatever I want to say. And that's it. And so, I mean,
how much studying had you done? Had you watched every Survivor season going into it? Did you just wing it? Have you seen anything?
So as I sent in my application, I had never seen an episode, not one. Because I was in.
Your dad said you should apply for this.
Yeah, my dad said I should apply. I laughed and said, you should apply. It's your favorite show. He laughed and said, I can't because I have a responsibility as a company owner and as a father, and you have none of that. And I was like, okay. So I sent an email to the casting, and I said, I sent him like pictures of my like last 3 Halloween costumes, which were a merman, Ultimate Warrior, and hairy pumped blind man. And I sent him those. What?
That was it. You were in.
I sent him those 3 pictures. I told him a little bit about my life background: a swimmer in college, a Mormon missionary, a pro cyclist. And then I just said, I kick ass. I deserve $1 million. So let's get this shit going. And I got a phone call from an LA area code 10 minutes after I pushed send on that email.
Wow.
And they were like, are you for real? And I happened to just be in Vegas that day from Utah, just in Vegas on a Tuesday morning because I didn't have anything else to do. And they were like, where are you? And I was like, Vegas. And they're like, you're in Vegas? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, you're from Vegas? I was like, no, this was like 2000. This was 2008. And I'm like, no, there's no self-respecting people that live in Vegas. Are you kidding me? I'm here visiting. And they're like, on a Tuesday morning? Why a Tuesday morning? And I was like, because I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want. What's with these questions? And they automatically after that, they were like, okay, we're flying out to California. We're going to have a bunch of interviews and see how it goes. And it wasn't like that easy the whole way through. Like going through all that casting stuff was a grind. And
tell me about that. So when, even at this point, you get picked into that spot, how many, that's not, you're on the show, right? That's
no. So you go to California, you're probably top like 200.
Okay.
So there's like 40 or 50 people in California at the same hotel, the DoubleTree in Santa Monica.
Okay.
There's
good enough.
handlers. They call them handlers. They all have walkies on them. They're reporting all of your movements at the hotel. You're only allowed to leave your room when you're called to leave your room. So, or the schedule. So they'll give you like, Jeff, come on in. You walk through. The first thing you do is you walk through, you bump into the person who's been on the phone with you, the casting agent. They're all there. Hey, Jeff, so excited to see you for the first time. This is so awesome. Here's your room key. We'll call you at the hotel room. Don't leave your room for anything. Here's your schedule. And then you look at the schedule. The schedule's like breakfast every morning at 8 to 8:30. You get the gym from 9:30 to 10. You get the pool from 11 to 12. And then you got lunch, and then go back to your room, and then you got dinner. And so that's pretty much how it goes. And then you go to breakfast, and there's 40 other people there. And as you walk in, one of the handlers comes and says, sit at a table by yourself. Don't talk to anybody. You're not allowed to talk to anybody unless they talk to you and have a walkie-talkie on them.
Interesting.
And so you see everybody, but you're not allowed to talk to anybody. And then you're going to interviews that they call you for. And the interviews are to see how well you can talk about people that you haven't even had a conversation with, and how noticeable you are and how much you stand out to the other people there. So your whole goal is to be able to talk about people and to create an impression on everyone else there. And so my casting agent came to me and was like, hey, look at, you just got to get people to talk about you. And the best way to do that is to be who you are around your closest friends. But the trick is you're by yourself. And so I was like, oh, okay, I think I got this. And it took me a little while because at first I was like, didn't know how it worked and was kind of unsure. And at that point I was like, if my goal is just to get people to talk about me, then I know how to do that. And so I went to breakfast. I went to dinner that night, I think. And it was a buffet line through the hotel. I scooped the mashed potatoes with my bare hand, put them on my plate, just like shook them off my fingers, because people that were trying out for the show were in line behind me watching me do this. And then I was taking bites of stuff, putting it back on the buffet tray after I was like, nah, not for me. And
you got to go contrarian, right? That's what you're saying. How do you stand out? You got to do a little real wild
all
stuff.
of it. Yeah.
You pull out all the tricks. Okay.
I wore a Speedo to the pool, which isn't unusual for me, but for in that setting, people are quite shocked by a Speedo. Right. And it wasn't any Speedo. It was a white Speedo, which is see-through, not only on the back, but also a little bit on the front. Okay. And the hotel management, not even somebody from the show, came and asked me to not wear that swimsuit. And so
a little bit of tribute to Richard Hatch as well.
Yeah, I guess so. So the hotel management was there talking to me as everybody else at the pool is witnessing me. And these are in waves. So you're having breakfast with like 15 people. The same 15 people are at the pool with you. The same 15 people are at the gym. And then there's 3 groups of those as there's like 40 or 50 people at the hotel. Then one day I showed up early on accident to the pool. And about halfway through my pool time, I realized this isn't my group. I'm an hour early. I checked my schedule, but nobody said anything to me. So I was like, I'm just going to stay the whole day at the pool.
You're just gonna
and
hang out. No
and
one, no
hang
one's
out
really counting
as the other groups come and go. So now everybody's seeing me in my Speedo at the pool. And it was like dumb luck that I even stumbled upon that. And after 2 days, this is like an 8-day trip. After 2 days of staying at the pool all day, I literally was at the pool for 6 hours, like 2 days in a row. Casting came up to me and was like, "Hey, we love what you're doing. That's so hilarious that you're just staying at the pool and do not give a shit. We love it. But other people are really pissed and they're complaining that you get all this pool time. So we have to ask you to not do that anymore." And I was like, okay. And then I just kept doing it. And, and they never asked me again. And the thing, I think they test your, like, if it would have been something more serious, I definitely would have followed the rules, but on something like ridiculous, they want you to be a rule breaker, you know, they want you to be a rule breaker, but within their within their parameters of like what's okay as a rule breaker. And so anything that's like disrespectful or is going to make their job harder, they definitely don't want. But as long as you're like respectful to them and just breaking the rules to get a rise out of everybody else, they love that.
Right. That's so very interesting. And then when you finally got told, was it there? Or did they call you back, or did they tell you?
No. So people are disappearing the whole time. And
it's
what
Survivor, it's a pre-Survivor. People are getting shipped out in front of your eyes.
Yeah, they're getting shipped out.
You see the room getting smaller.
Yes. And they told me, they were like, those are the people that aren't making it, and they don't know they didn't make it. They got told that we'd already gotten everything we needed from them. And so as people are disappearing, they're thinking they maybe made the show, but they didn't stay the whole week. They just got an early flight home, and they're being told, we got everything we need. We got done earlier than we thought we would with you. Awesome. We'll call you. Because they don't want to have that rejection face to face, because they deal with thousands upon tens of thousands of rejections every season where they're telling people no. So they have to do it. Like most of the time, you're either getting ghosted or you're getting like a real short phone call from somebody you don't know. That's like, "Hey, didn't get it. Sorry. See ya." And so, but I was aware of this at a certain point. And so the room's getting smaller and smaller, and the interviews are getting more and more important. And the last interview, they take you to CBS studios, and you are in front of, at the time, Les Moonves and, you know, like the CEO of CBS, all the president, all these people are there to make a decision on whether or not you could go on their show.
Very, very intense. And then when you finally so when do you actually know? When do you get the call up?
So that's the thing though. So you leave and they're like, "Yeah, we'll call you in like 2 weeks." It's never 2 weeks. They're always behind schedule, and it's always by a lot. And the best thing you can do if you're going through casting is try not to care about it, or at least pretend like you don't care. And so they called like maybe 3 or 4 weeks after, and they said, "Hey, we have some news for you." And maybe you'll get like an email. It's like, "Hey, we're not quite done figuring it out yet. We'll get in touch." And for me, like, I hadn't invested a lot. Like, I had started watching the show only because I was going through the casting process, and it wasn't a lifelong dream of mine to be on the show initially. So for me, it was just kind of like, easy loss. It's not a big deal if I don't get this thing. And to some degree, I looked at the other people and was like, if they choose those guys over me, then you know what? That's their loss anyways. And because this was the younger, arrogant me. And they called me and they said, "Hey, we got some news for you." And I was like, "Cool." And they're like, "You made the show." And I was like, "Cool." And they're like, "That's all we got from you? Is it cool?" And I was like, "Well, I'm Generation X. So like, this is as excited as I get."
This is me fired up.
This is me fired up, dude.
Yeah. So what's the guarantee? What is that? Is it a min cash? Are you guaranteed something? I forget the payout structure. And
you're guaranteed like 12K min cash.
Okay. So
but it goes up from there. So everybody gets 10,000. And then, but you have to be gone the whole time, the whole 5 weeks. So even if you're voted out first, you don't get to go home. You have to stay there. And so min cash is, everybody gets 10K. First person voted out gets 2,500. And then it jumps up like 1.5 or 2 grand, slow increments. Second place gets 100K, and winner gets $1 million. So second place to first one voted out is 100,000 down to 2,500, and everything is in between there. So it's Yeah, I would say for, most of the population, even getting voted out first is worth the trip. But yeah, so
And,
yeah, so that was
and
it.
so was that like that 12K? What in your head now? What are you thinking now? How does this thing shift once you're on the show? Is it like, all right, now I'm gonna ramp up studying. Now it's real. Now, like,
Yeah.
I want to know, like, I want to talk to people, that find people that have been on. I want to learn about it. Like, how deep into it did you go?
So they scare you into not contacting anybody that's been on the show. They're like, we will know. We pay some people to report back to us if anybody gets in touch with them. Watch the show as much as you can. They have the casting agents still in touch with you, helping you prepare and stuff like that, telling you like, hey, you got to learn how to make fire. You should learn how to make a shelter. You should do this and that. So you're doing all that stuff and you're watching the show, but the show isn't even a true representation of the game, because like an episode of the show is 3 days worth of footage. And so you're seeing a storyline of strategy that either worked or worked for a little bit or was so catastrophic that it didn't work at all. What you're not seeing is the 500 other ideas that people have proposed throughout the days. And so you're seeing like a real streamlined version of the actual game, when it's like you're having swirling conversations that are constantly changing all day long.
Yeah, I got to believe that too. Like, thinking about this casting process, it really is, they're hand picking a fairly large pool, and there are some stages. So like the people are probably pretty sharp, pretty interesting, and it's not an easy competition. It's not just like random people off the street or someone says, hey, I'd like to do it. So they are getting some people that are probably pretty physically fit, pretty mentally sharp, or you can tell have something about them. Where did you, when you sized up the group, when you got there, I'm sorry, how many is it? 20?
20. Yeah.
When you saw the 20, when you got, like, what was the feeling like when you, like, give me the process of, so where was your season, the first one?
Brazil.
Oh, Brazil. Very nice. What part?
Tocantins National Park, in the desert highlands of Brazil, which is like just east of the Amazon basin, the Amazon Delta.
And so was this like, do you remember the process flying down there?
Yeah, all of it, dude.
Other people flying on your flight?
Yeah, they all were. The whole cast was on the flight.
Everyone goes out of LA.
So we all flew to Miami.
Oh, Miami. Okay.
Then we all stayed in a hotel in Miami. We didn't see anybody yet. And then they brought us in small groups to the airport, where the entire cast all congregated right there at the airport at the ticketing gate. And that's the first time we saw everybody that was going to be on the show. And
what do you remember thinking when you saw the people there? Were you kind of like, oh, it's interesting, or did you start already like thinking, oh, was it like instantly like a game to you, like, all right, this guy and whatever, I want to try to bond with this person?
Yeah, and mostly what I did was I tried to pick people that were the most different from me, figuring people wouldn't suspect us working together, And so it was like the old lady and like the nerdy looking dude and stuff like that. I was like, okay, if I work with these people that don't look like I look, then nobody will suspect this alliance. And so that was my initial like kind of thought process going into it. And then traveling, you get to see like people's nuances, how if they're picky, if they're, you like hear them having conversations with like airline employees and stuff like that. So you do get like a little window into who they are. And then the trip was a grind, dude. Because we took like 3 different flights to get to like the middle of nowhere. And then we took like a 6-hour drive on a dirt road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so by the time we got there, people were already frazzled. And so then you get to see people under duress and stuff, and the show hasn't even started yet.
So is that like kind of, is it that point, are people kind of, like, is it like kind of, you wondering, is it worth it? Could you tell where there's some people kind of like annoyed, like what the hell's going on? And it was just not made for some people right away. Like,
yeah, definitely.
That, like within a night there. Cause it's, this is also what I understand. I don't know if you can talk about that or not, but in terms of the accommodations, like, is it literally you're out in the middle of nowhere outdoors? Or like, do you get to come in and get breaks or get like any kind of like protection or anything? Or you're just literally on your own out there?
No, you are on your own. I mean, you're with the group, but there's no respite unless you create it for yourself. And so the trip is hard, but then once you get out there, there's like a week where they're like, let you acclimate a little bit. You're in tents with like electricity and you have access to toilets and stuff. And they're just kind of like teaching you a little bit about the area so that you don't like go off and hurt yourself really bad. So they're like showing you any poisonous plants there are, or what the animals are like and stuff like that to
It's
stay
probably
safe.
a pretty intense waiver you sign, right? Because I mean,
Dude,
poison
it's
stuff and
a
animals,
thick
like,
waiver.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're not just like, oh, this is what we suggest. But I mean, at some point you get like, how does it happen if someone's like confused, or that, what if they see you pick something that they know is like like, is there any type of help, or is it just
Yeah.
like
Yeah. There's medical there.
yeah,
And there is, like, if you were to take something like this last season I was on, before we ate a fish, they would give us the thumbs up of if we could eat it or not. And so there's stuff like that.
that's
Like,
pretty,
we got a fish and they're like, hold on, I don't know that fish. Let me check with the expert and then I'll let you know if you can cook that. And
wow, that's pretty intense. That's pretty,
yeah.
like, I wouldn't even realize that that's a thing. You could like cook a fish that's not okay.
Yeah, because there's some pollution poisoning, mercury poisoning stuff with some fish, and usually the fish at the top of the food chain are more susceptible to that type of thing. So eating shark can be dangerous for you because they've eaten a lot of fish that have eaten a lot of pollution.
Yeah.
And then they're the filter at the very top, so they're getting all of it.
Right. Interesting.
And so, but like on this season, there was and there's cashews that grow wild, and cashews are actually a seed, not a nut. And they grow, there's a cashew apple, and then the seed grows on the outside of this apple, and the fruit is really, really good. But a cashew you cannot eat raw. It has to be processed, or else it is toxic to a human.
Okay.
And so they said, you can eat these cashew fruits if you see them growing, but do not, under any circumstances, try to eat the seed. Don't break open the seed casing and get any of that liquid on your hands or anything like that. And so I said, okay. And I mean, everybody said, okay. And then I found a cashew apple like day 2. And I was doing an interview, and one of the producers was like, have you found any food yet? And I was like, yeah, I found a cashew fruit, and I ate the fruit, and then I cracked the seed open and ate the seed, knowing it would get a rise out of the producer. And the producer just like went like ghost white. And was just like, did you really eat that though? Like trying to be cool so that I wasn't startled. I was like, yeah, I did. It was kind of weird tasting, but I got it down and I think it gave me energy. And she's like, no, but did you really eat that? And I was like, yeah, I did. And then she called on the walkie. She's like, hey, Tyson ate a cashew seed. Yeah. And then I was like, I'm just kidding. I didn't eat one. At that point, I was like, I didn't eat one. I'm just kidding. And she's like, oh my God, dude, that you probably would have died. And I would have been the one that was kind of responsible because I'm here with you right now. And I was like, no, I listened to you guys. So
that's awesome. And did you what were you, once you got there and acclimated a bit and it was time for the games to start, like, was it like pure excitement? Were you nervous, or were you like, man, I don't know if I want to be here? You're like, this is for me. I'm going to ship $1 million. I mean, $1 million purse is pretty special, right? Like in reach, 5% equity, plus you're probably a favorite, just guessing overall, like with the crew, the cast. What do you think your actual chances were? There's a lot of luck too. People vote you out. You could have like a misstep, like just like any, which is kind of fun. But what do you think your like true odds were? Like, let's say you didn't get picked off or something that you couldn't control.
At that point, I mean, there was probably the majority of the season, I was the odds-on favorite to win, like in Vegas and stuff when they used to bet on Survivor. And physically, I was the most dominant person there, and socially, I was very good as well. And so, honestly, there was a point where I was like, I don't even see how I can lose this $1 million. And that's about the point when things go wrong. If you're on Survivor and there's still a handful of people left and you're in your head saying, I don't see how I can lose $1 million, that's when you need to reevaluate everything and change your direction, because everybody else is seeing that exact thing.
Right. So looking back at it, which I guess you did get a few opportunities and did capitalize, what would you have done differently, what in your control to not go out? And I think 8th place, and what did that pay?
Yeah. I made like almost 40K that season. Okay. And there were some things I could have done, and I had initially thought of it. And I think the one thing is that you can't let your emotions or your personal differences come in between you and strategy. And so you need to take the people who are going to benefit you most, even if they aren't your best friend. And I think that in that first season, especially, I did not do that. There were definitely people I alienated and people I wanted out just because I knew that they were crossing me a little bit. When if I probably would have sat down and had a conversation with them that was like, hey, I know you're out to get me and this is all the info I know on you because other people are telling me, I think it could have worked definitely in my favor. And so I went back playing the other times with that mindset, like do not alienate people. Even the people on the bottom at some point change the course of the game. And that's almost always how it is.
When you got voted off on the first round, did you know you were getting voted off at that moment when you went to the tribal thing, or do you never really know?
No, but I also was in my mind, I was like, how could they not vote me out? They're idiots. And I think if you're saying that, then everyone else is saying that too. And
how much of it is luck and skill? Because like essentially the challenge
it's like poker. It's like poker,
right? Like you could be the best in the challenge, but you know, that particular challenge is like not, you just, whatever, another person just goes out of their mind or is like.
Oh, and a lot of challenges are luck based to a certain degree, like a shuffleboard challenge. You know, like there's challenges where that are definitely, they have to design the challenges so that everybody there
has some
chance to win it or to win a challenge. And so for me, I think my best challenges are ones that have multiple steps to them because I'm pretty good at everything. And so if you can add a bunch of different elements, then maybe I'm like the top 80, top 90 percentile of most of those things. I'm going to come out with the W versus one specific thing. Now it's a crapshoot for me.
You have an athletic background and you play games. You like, you know, these things are just, you're definitely built for this type of show. So when you get in there and now you're seeing the stuff, like, would you say that the other people there, how many people from your experience, people, you know, people that you've talked to afterward, like really like the show and they're like, I'm glad I did this. And how many are like, I shouldn't have gone and this was not for me. And I just don't, get me out of here. Or is like most people want to go back after they get eliminated?
I think most people want to go back. Most people are happy they did it once because it's a challenge and it's out of a lot of people's comfort zone. And it's just interesting to see how you will react under those situations and under that type of stress. And in some ways see how self-reliant you can be with nothing. And then I think initially when you get voted out, most people are like, I got to play again. I can win this. I could have done better. I just needed to do one thing. And you put a lot of survivors who haven't won the show in a room and all they're telling you is bad beat stories.
I had a note. My dad made a note on that. That was fascinating. Like literally, because everyone, it's like poker and sex and anything. People think they're the best, right? Like in these spots, and guys are just like, they're like, oh, I should have had this, or like, oh, if this didn't happen, or I can't believe this challenge. They voted me out when I was the most dangerous. You know, like stuff like that. That sort of mentality. So it's got to be almost humorous for a bit. It's annoying.
Yes, exactly.
Time, but,
You get a bunch of former contestants in a room, and it's nonstop bad beat stories. And it's usually pointing the blame at somebody like, hey, if you wouldn't have done that, I probably could have won. It's like you were fourth one voted out. You had like 17 more moves to win the game. You had so many more moves left. Like, how can you even blame it on something like that? So it's exactly like that. And people are different too. Like for me, like I am driven by an adrenaline rush and I'm driven to compete. And I do really well when I do something for the first time. Like if you're like, okay, here's a physical challenge you've never done before, I will perform better than I should just based on the fact that like I'm proving to people that I can do something like that. And the adrenaline is going through me. Like I think I thrive under pressure to a certain degree where I don't think a lot of people have that same reaction. People can crumble under the pressure as well.
Right. And what about like lying, alliances, all this stuff, like, you know, Big Brother as well. I mean, there's a clip that stands out to me. Liv Marie, who you know, you're from poker. She was on a show. I forget the name of the show where it was like either you chop that you like talk and you're like, you get half, right? Like you either get half the price.
Oh yeah.
Like, I won't screw you. And she like, it's like, yeah, you know, this is beautiful. We're both going to win. Of course I would never do that. And then she like, that was like her introduction to like TV and stuff. And she just like savagely like crushed this guy and then took the money.
Yeah.
So it's like, but you know, and she's a gamer. She's a gamesman and it's gaming. Like, how do you sort of separate that with Survivor? Is it literally anything goes and this is like role play and a thing? Or do you feel like there's some sort of ethical stuff, and what's your take on that with the game versus real life, and how you separate the two?
Honestly, it is just a game, and you really have to go into it with that mindset. But that being said, I think that if you're playing purely strategic and all of your moves are based on strategy, then, or if you and I played together and you got the best of me and it made sense for you to get rid of me, then I would have no issue with that. But if we went in and we're friends and you're like, I just want to get rid of Tyson so that he doesn't get more followers than me on Instagram, then I would take offense to you voting me out, because I'd be like, it probably,
then it gets personal.
I mean, it's like to get somebody out just to get them out. I would be bugged by that. But if it's like strategically I have to because I have a better route without you, then for me that's fine. And like I've played so many times that I played with multiple friends, and I played with multiple friends multiple times, and that's the general understanding, right. is that like if I have a friend out there, I will work with that friend as long as it benefits both of us.
Right. And speaking of that, does I would imagine, I know the answer to this, the show, they don't facilitate deals, I would imagine, right? They don't want like guys heads up.
It's against the rules.
Against the rules. Now, is there any way to do that? Has anyone done that you know of? Or is it like you're on camera and microphone, you can never like go whisper when you're down to 3 and like do that? I mean, just and don't speak. Obviously, there's a code. I'm not saying you know someone. I'm just saying in theory, could somebody do it if they wanted to, or really there's no way? Because in poker too, some tournaments do, some don't facilitate guys making.
And bike racing is the same. There's deals made, and people kind of get upset at that sometimes.
In what? In poker?
In bike racing.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay,
bike racing, if you got 2 guys heads up for a race and one of them's like, this is going to change my career, I'll pay you $100,000 to let me win it. Like it happens. And you could definitely find a place to hide and talk a deal with somebody.
But then it's a little more complicated because like in poker, even if like say WSOP or party poker or somewhere won't facilitate it, you can still write down something, have a contract, like do something. But there, I mean, you're out.
There's nothing. Brazil, it's on your word.
There's a handshake, legit. That's it. There's no like take a paper, pen, and like let's do this. And I mean, because I'm sure if it has happened, it could get ugly too, right? There could be even like level, like it's like your buddy, but are they really? You didn't know him before. You know him for what, a week or a month or whatever, or 5 weeks, like So then you're also trusting that, and it's so. Interesting. But so yeah, the show does not want that, and they tried, and it basically is frowned upon, and
because it ruins the story of the show. Like when you have like 6 or 7 people who are in some type of deal before the show even starts or early on, and then all of a sudden people are getting eliminated and it doesn't make any sense to the audience. Like what kind of TV is that?
Right. Yeah, guys, it's just too crazy, right? How is this guy getting voted off?
Yeah, that we don't see any relationships forming, but there's this tight group of these people who have supposedly, and with a returning show with the people, all returning players, that's definitely going to happen to a certain degree. They try to police it as best they can, but there's no way to stop it.
That's a good point. Then it gets tricky because now you do know people. Now you do have stuff. Yeah. Now when you're coming back, so are you not supposed to say when you're coming back? Is that like the deal? Like they invite you back and technically you're not supposed to like
correct
say anything?
Correct. You're not supposed to talk to anybody. You're not supposed to say anything. But with social media and everything these days, it's like impossible to stop that. And I don't even know if it's in the contract anymore that it's against the rules. It used to be in the contract that was against the rules.
It's very similar to poker with like ghosting, right? Because it's like, I stream on Twitch, I'm on camera, I'm here, whatever. But what are you doing for 99% of the population of the people that, they get deep in a tournament? Unfortunately, it's one of the, the areas of poker, you could say it's stuff like people ghost, you stake someone and then they want help, they're a better player. And you're like, this is the type of stuff you can't really control. And so like put a rule about it. It's sort of crazy because, there's not really no way to police it, but yeah. So interesting. All right. Well, listen, there's so many things I want to talk about. I'm fascinated by that whole thing. Let's just talk about quickly the second run then. So you get voted out. When you get, tell me the feeling though, when you got voted out. Was it like devastating? That were you so immersed at that point, 8 left, like, wow, this is $1 million up top? Like, was there a number you're like, I want to get top 3, or like, I'm got to win it? And like, what did that feel like when they called your name and you were done? And now you got a long 3-flight home from the middle of nowhere in Brazil.
Yeah.
You get 40 G's, which is nice. You're on national television, pretty fun experience, but what was the feeling?
Oh, disappointment and anger for sure. Like because at that point I was like, I was the favorite. I knew I was the favorite. Everyone else knew I was the favorite, and it felt like nobody was going to do anything about it. And so at that point I was like, I got $1 million. This is crazy. I'm going to win $1 million on TV. This is so crazy. So I'd already convinced myself that I was getting paid, and so there was that. And then like, I think everybody handles it differently. And they do have like a psychiatrist there. The second you get voted out, they put you in a car with a psychiatrist. So
Really?
yeah, to just talk you down, talk you through it if you need. And I was good. Like I'm pretty strong mentally. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life, and I've lost a lot of things. Like professional bike racing is, for most of bike racers, is not about winning. And it's like, how do you explain to your friends that you lost 3 more bike races that week? Like that's just the way it goes with pro cycling. And so for me, it was like, I lost, I had the opportunity. It was cool, whatever. It's, and so like I was able to justify it and be okay with it. Some people have a much harder time. And also, years down the road, a few years down the road, I ended up winning, and that brought a lot of closure to all of those feelings of it. But Survivor's interesting in the same way that poker is that the most talented poker player in the tournament almost never wins the tournament.
As it has to be, or else there's no real show or excitement, or it's just like, it's got to have some luck and variance, right?
Correct. And Survivor's the same.
And how did that so when it gets down to 8, like, what's the actual, like, so what happened? You lost a challenge?
So I lost a challenge. I lost the first challenge that I'd lost in a long time.
Okay.
And I was thinking I was going to be safe through that, and then I was just going to win every other challenge to the finish line. And I was like, I'll do that. That's the easiest way to win. If I win every challenge, everybody just has to vote for me to win, no matter how I'm treating anybody. And so that was my plan A. And then I get voted out. But I mean, the second I saw my name the first time, I knew it was me. I was like, there's no reason my name should even be written down one time. And so at that point, I was like, they got me. Damn it.
So was it a matter of who won that challenge, or were you basically like toasted, like in your mind where you had no out, or like after you lost a challenge, or was it a bit unlucky who won that challenge to vote you out?
No, it was an ally who won the challenge, and they actually offered me the immunity necklace and just like, here, you can wear this if it makes you feel more comfortable. I was like, I don't think I need it this time, because in my head, I had the numbers. And Survivor is like poker in that it is a numbers game. You want to be on the right side of the numbers all the time. You're always making decisions based on that, how many numbers you can keep with you versus how many numbers are then going to be against you.
Right.
And
why wouldn't you take the immunity though? Like, even if you thought you didn't need it, why wouldn't you take it?
Because there's some, I mean, in hindsight, yes, I probably should have, but if there is some, there's something to being like, no, you keep it, you earned it, and I feel comfortable with our relationship, and as long as we're together, it shouldn't matter, type of thing. If
you're taking it, what would happen? That person could be at risk even though they won?
Yeah.
But why would they offer it to you?
Because they probably didn't feel like they were at risk either, and they weren't, and it would have been a lot differently. But yeah, but that's how it is.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't obviously you make the best choice in the moment.
But the thing is like, it's like a lot of stuff. It's like, if you end up, you can't seem like you are fully selfish on Survivor, because so you have to at least appear to be acting for the good of your alliance all the time. And you have to show some good faith. It's just part of the show, is like showing good faith, then you get good faith in return. And so in doing something like that, we're like, she was so excited that she won this necklace. And she's like, she's like, if you don't feel comfortable, you can have it at tribal council. I was like, no, I feel good, and you earned it. You should wear it, type of thing. And yeah, in hindsight, I should have taken it. But at the time, I didn't really feel threatened. And it did earn good faith with her in that she was like, oh, cool, he's letting me wear it. I'm excited to wear it. It's like an exciting thing to wear the immunity necklace for a lot of people. So, yeah.
Very, very interesting. Someone's referencing the Garrett. It's I'm sorry, it's Patrick. What's up, Patrick? They got live at the bike saying Garrett. Is he talking about Garrett Adelstein? Was he on?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay,
he
I didn't know
was.
that. I didn't actually. Now that sounds familiar. Maybe I heard that.
A lot of people didn't know that.
Yeah.
Actually, most people know it. He was on the show. He didn't last very long.
Interesting. And I know JRB. What I think Anna Kate. Any other kind of poker ties in? There's a few others maybe.
I mean, Boston Rob was there.
Yes.
And he's in poker.
He win as well.
Who?
Boston. Did he win it? Boston Rob?
Yes. Boston Rob has won one. He won like 2012, 2000, maybe 2011.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I feel like there's more poker. Oh yeah. Just on like a year ago, Ronnie
Barta.
Yeah.
Okay,
Ronnie Barta was on it.
I did know that too. Yeah, like Ronnie.
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah. No, there's a few others I know. I just can't. I'm drawing a blank, but I know. You lose a lot of weight. That is true, right? You
do lose a ton of weight. And Garrett is super muscly, and the muscly guys do have it really tough out there with almost no calories. Like you have all that muscle, and now it's just eating itself. And you could tell he was really exhausted, and it was only a few days in, and then he tried to control the game by telling people not to talk strategy, which rubbed everybody the wrong way.
Interesting.
And so, yeah.
What?
So it was, it was unfortunate because I know he really wanted to play the game and he's been a fan of the game for a long time. And you get out there and it's just different than what you see. Like it's harder than a lot of people really expect it to be, even though I think in some aspects it's easier than people are assuming. Like a lot of people will say, I'm not very good at going camping. I'm not good at like survival stuff. It's like, you don't have to be. You have to rely on the group a lot and the group dynamic and getting things done as a group. And that's where you're going to thrive. And so you see a lot of people who are out of their element, but are able to still thrive because they are helping the group thrive in whatever capacity they can. And so I think in that way it is easier. You don't need to have those skills specifically, but in a lot of ways for Garrett, I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of him, but what I saw on TV is that his body being as big and muscly as it is was unable to deal with starvation, and it affected him mentally and emotionally and depleted his morale, etc.
Yeah, he's a guy I don't know so well, but I obviously a world-class poker player. Seems like a really interesting guy. Maybe one day I can talk to him about that and what that experience was. It sounds. I mean, just again, I feel like you talk forever about even one parter of a season. It's just so interesting and unique. So I do not want to spend the entire time on it, but you get voted out, and then you're like, man, I want to get back. How long did they tell you, did you know you would be coming back likely, or do you have no idea? Or was this a thing where they were like doing repeats yet, or not really?
At that time, they had done one repeat and then kind of thought that they weren't going to do anymore. But I had kind of a hunch that they were going to do it. And there were whispers that it was going to happen. And then I think we filmed my first season in like October, November of 2008.
Yeah, because this was talk tens or what is that's right?
Yeah, Tocantins. Yeah,
Tocantins. Yeah,
and so it aired in 2009.
Yep.
And then I went to the finale 2009 in May, and a couple days after the finale, I got a phone call from casting or an email that they were going to be doing a returning season and I'd be going back.
So heroes versus villains. This is called how do you get deemed a villain versus a hero? Do they just decide based on how you're portrayed, or is this a voting? Like
they just decided based on and if you look at it, I mean, the villains tribe has definitely been way more successful as survivor players than the heroes tribe. The villains tribe is more devious, more strategic, more and the heroes are more of like the sweethearts of America who are, built like Superman and do everything based on the fact that everyone's watching and they try to, and so they're not the gamers for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. And then, so what happened there? So you go out in 15th. This was,
Yeah, I blew myself up. So at that point, after Tocantins, I said, okay, I got to take big risks and everything's on me. I can't rely on anybody, and I'm just going to take some big swings. And I took a really big swing that ended up backfiring on me and ended up getting voted out really early. And that was like pretty upsetting because it was all my fault. Like if I would have just done what I had planned to do initially, I would have been okay.
And what did you do?
So there was 9 of us on the tribe, 6 of us on one side and 3 on the other. There was a hidden immunity idol on the group of 3 that we knew about, and we were going to split the votes 3-3 on 2 of them. So even if all 3 of them put their votes on one of us, it would go to a revote and we'd just vote one of them out. But I knew who had the idol, and I knew that it was unlikely they were going to give it away. So I took a swing at one of the other people. So I switched my vote. So instead of splitting it 3-3, I didn't tell anybody, and I switched my vote to the other person to make it a 4-2 vote. And they all voted for me. So I had 3 votes, and the person who received 2 votes, who had the immunity idol, gave it to the person who was going to get 4 votes. So they were protected. So then I had the most next votes and went home.
So where was this one? Where did this take place?
Samoa.
How is this different in terms of difficulty from the time you weren't there that long? But
yeah,
how did the terrain and the overall feeling of the differences, like, were you just more prepared because you had experience and you were ready to go, or was it challenging also?
It was challenging in a few. I mean, there were differences. It was easier in that it was by the ocean. Salt water is easier than fresh water, and we didn't have salt water in Tocantins. It was inland.
Why is that easier?
Salt water just kills more bacteria, more infection. It's easier to stay clean. It's easier to stay less stinky because you can rinse your mouth out with salt water and scrub your teeth up a little bit. You can scrub salt water all over your body, and salt water does kill a lot of those germs and bacteria, and fresh water doesn't. So the freshwater season, everybody smelled way worse, and there was a lot more people that were getting skin infections and stuff like that on their body versus a saltwater season. So that was easier. It was harder in the sense in that it was pure strategy and business right off the get-go. And the first season you're on, you say, yeah, it's going to be all strategy and business. And then when you get out there, it's such a ridiculous situation that you all kind of bond over how weird and ridiculous and unique it is. And so you do spend the first week or so getting to know people and kind of moving at a slower pace. Whereas on a returning season, you hit the ground running, you got to find your group. Everybody's being strategic. Nothing around camp is getting done because everybody's busy playing the game. And so from that standpoint, it was less enjoyable initially. It wasn't harder. It was just this is not as fun.
Yeah.
And
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense too. I guess it's also in the first one too. I guess you said, it's almost like it is surviving. Got guys you're relying on to go get the food or whatever. Guys are relying to keep you warm or find the right thing. So you're kind of bonded over necessity and just everyone learning together. All right. So that one wasn't too eventful. You go out 15th. What was the feeling there? Similar, different? You're disappointed? Wow.
Way worse. Way worse. Yeah, way worse. Because I knew that I had set myself up really good because I was holding 2 separate factions together and I was the middle guy between them.
Okay.
And I was kind of leading things from the background and people were not suspecting of me at all. So I was feeling like I was in a great spot. And so that was a lot of disappointment. And it was, I've had to answer that question a lot. Why did you switch your vote? All the time I have to answer that question. It's just I was taking a big swing, trying to take control early and then just, and in hindsight, it was a poor move. Even if it would have worked out because I didn't tell the rest of the people I was working with that I was going to switch my vote, they would have not trusted me after that anyways. So the next time I go out, I kind of thought I was done. I thought I was totally done with that season. And, or I thought I was totally done with Survivor because I went out so early. I didn't make that much of an impact other than I did something crazy. And, then I get a call to go back and,
so this is now Survivor,
Blood versus water.
And what's the whole thing here?
The premise is that it's a returning player plus they bring a loved one who was my girlfriend, now wife.
Wait, what? It's a show with your significant other?
Yeah.
For everyone. So everyone has a partner?
Everyone has a partner, but then they split us up. So it's returning players versus the partners tribe.
Wow. So there's 20. Is it a million to first as well? It's a million, right?
Yep.
So you have a 50% chance now. Or I'm sorry, well, a double chance of what
Double
it was.
chance,
So
yeah.
10% chance now
Yep.
to win a million. But you're
Yes.
actually how were the payouts any different or still no? So you could actually go out 19 and 20 as a couple.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Super interesting. That's cool. What a concept. What were your thoughts when you got when they presented this idea to you? Like, was it, I mean, what did your girlfriend it was a girlfriend at the time?
Yeah.
Or no.
His girlfriend. So
Yeah,
we were living together and they called me initially, but they didn't call me and ask me if my girlfriend wanted to play. They called me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in playing again?" I was like, "No, I'm good." And at that time, I'd convinced myself, I was like, I'm too talented for this game. Like, I'm too good athletically, I'm too good socially, and you can't stand out at all. Like, you really have to downplay everything you do to, further yourself in the game. So part of me was that. And then I was just like, I don't know that I want to deal with the disappointment of losing again. And so they said, okay, that was like in January. Then around March or April, another casting person called and said, would you be interested in playing Survivor if Rachel also got to come with you and play Survivor? And I said, that would interest me, but only if Rachel wants to do it. So here's her phone number. You call her and have the conversation with her. And if she, what?
Yeah, you enroll her. You told them you got to enroll her.
Yes, exactly. So I said, you enroll her and it's up to her. I'm not influencing her decision. She can choose. And if she decides that we should do it, then we will. And they said, okay. So they talked to her and she ended up going through the casting process. I didn't have to go through the casting process. I'm a returning player. They just have to make sure that I'm sane and physically okay to do the show. So they fly. So what happens when you're a returning player is they fly you out to LA, you take a psych evaluation and go do a physical with a doctor, like an in-depth physical where they do
heart. What percent of people don't make it through that?
Through the physical and the mental?
Yeah, like that they come and like they're ready to go and they just can't get out there.
Some, for sure, some. I don't think it's a huge percentage, but I have definitely heard of people not passing psych and also not passing physical. Okay. So it does happen. It's not a huge percentage, but it's like you got to be able to run. Your heart has to be healthy. You can't have like bad knees or anything that's going to prohibit you from running and jumping and things like that. Psych wise, they need to make sure that even under extreme stress, you're not going to hurt yourself or somebody else.
Okay.
And so that's basically what they're looking for. They want you to be crazy for sure. That's one of their ingredients of the show is crazy people, but you can't be so crazy that you're going to cause harm to yourself or somebody else.
Okay.
And so, so Rachel goes out, does the casting, we get through, and then we end up going out for that. And initially, I said, okay, I'm here so that Rachel can have this experience so she can feel what I've felt the last 2 times I played and knows exactly what I've been going through and what I do when I do this. And I'm just here to have fun and party and have as much fun as I can until they inevitably vote me out for being too good at something.
Where was this one taking place?
The Philippines. Which, interestingly enough, was the exact same place that I went on a mission. I drove through little villages that I had been as a Mormon missionary 15 years before.
I did have notes on that. You went for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So did this feel a little extra special, even though maybe obviously you want to win, but did you kind of think, wow, this is just speaking to me a bit?
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit. Because the fact that it was like the exact location where I had lived 2 years was crazy. And it wasn't going to help me other than that I was a little familiar with the terrain, because it's not like you come in contact with natives that you're able to speak their language. That doesn't matter because you're not coming in contact with anybody like that, really.
Right.
And so it did a little bit, but at the same time, I also knew that people were threatened by me and that I probably wasn't going to last long. And looking back, having conversations after that season, a lot of people did want me gone first. And I was able to change the tide of that and move it a different direction. But it was unbeknownst to me. I just was like, I'm just here to party. I'm not going to play. I don't really give a shit. And
But
people
so
let me
did you
sleep.
guys lock up 24 grand? Is it the same situation, 12 and 12 in that spot, or
Yeah.
is it 12 for
Yes.
so
Yes. We already had.
24,000 is locked up. You go there. Were you worried about her mindset at all and like her being able to handle it?
Yeah, a little bit, but I also knew that you just rely on the group and it's fine as long as you're trying to help the group when you can. And so I wasn't concerned with her. She was a little bit, but she says now that the most shocking thing for her in those moments was the fact that uh, there were so many camera guys. Like the opening shot when you walk out onto the beach and the host Jeff Probst is there, there's hundreds of people standing behind him, photographers, video, VIPs, CBS executives. There's a ton of people out there. And so, and I didn't even think to tell her that. I just like assumed that it's a TV show. So she was like, you never told me that there were hundreds of people standing there. I was like, I didn't even think to tell you
That's
that.
interesting. I didn't really realize that. I guess you just wouldn't think of that. How does that impact mentality? Does that make you feel a little more safe and like like, hey, if stuff's there versus like just get dusted into the wild and you're like, can't see anyone? Do you see people at like almost all times around you? Like,
Yeah.
because there's cameras in front of you, right? I mean, so like,
Yes.
that's got to be a little reassuring if you're in the middle of Brazil or Samoa or Philippines and you just worried like someone's going to come out of the woodwork and you just got no one to talk to or ask like an emergency. I guess that does take a little bit of the.
It takes a lot off, actually.
Yeah.
Like you start feeling like it's a set. Like you don't even feel like you're in the wild to a certain degree. Like I was getting up in the middle of the night in Brazil there's like a larger population of poisonous snakes in Brazil than there is almost anywhere else in the world. And I was just like walking out barefooted in the middle of the night to tinkle and not even given two thoughts about it. And so, yeah, there it is. But in some instances, it's a false sense of security in that you are in the wild. It's just all these people out there make it feel like it's almost not.
Was there on any of the 3, or I guess going to be 4 times you were there? Did you see anything crazy, like someone get bit by a snake, or like was there any emergencies that you can?
Yeah, I mean, there was crew members that had been bit by a snake. The craziest thing that I saw was on my first season, we sat down next to the fire and it was dusk. We couldn't see very well. And we all had these rocks that were about like shoulder height. So you could lay on them and it would like keep your neck exactly level. And one of the girls went to put her head down on a rock and she was like inches from the rock. And she said, there's a snake coiled around this rock. And they had a snake expert rush in, flash a light on it. It was a coral snake. And if she would have gotten bit on the face or the neck or something by a coral snake, she probably would not have survived that. And she was literally a handful of inches away from that snake. So the snake guy came in with snake tongues, picked it up, put it in a pillowcase, wrapped it up, drove it out to the middle of nowhere. And so that on Brazil, that's what would happen. So if you saw a snake in camp, they would clear the entire camp, look through everything. And then if they found something, they'd pull it. If not, they'd just be on high alert for a little while.
Jeez. Yeah. I mean, that is, like you said, a little false security. That's got to make mentally just kind of relax a little more, but you're in the middle of like the middle of it. Like you're in the heart of nature. And that is scary because, listen, you get bit by a snake and you got people sucking out of your neck when you get bit by a poison animal in the middle of nowhere. Like, I mean, that's pretty intense. I mean, what about other seasons? Have you heard any other, not that you saw, but was there any kind of like some kind of wild scenario like that you know of, or any? And I'm sure in the seasons there's been some crazy shit that's happened.
Yeah. I think in a different season, in France, like a French season, the French version of Survivor, somebody drowned.
Oh shit! Actually, yeah. Wow.
And then in any of the ocean ones, you always see like sharks and stuff out there once in a while, and so you'll bump into that stuff. Nothing too dangerous that I've heard of, other than stuff like that. And that's, I mean, but you could see a shark on vacation. So.
Right. Okay. But so again, this, I mean, there's so many topics. I know we're already an hour and a half in. I want to take some questions on Twitter. There's, like I said, Tyson, I just had a feeling there's just so many, your life and the stuff you've done and kind of past and different things you've dove into. It's pretty interesting, but tell me about the feeling of winning and how did your girlfriend do it? What place did she get?
So my girlfriend went out pretty early, and the whole premise of the show was that if you got voted out, your loved one would have the option of switching places with you on a Redemption Island type scenario, which Redemption Island gave you the chance to win your way back into the show.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So they voted Rachel out. They targeted her specifically on the opposite tribe, hoping that I would step down from my position in my tribe on the other side to switch places with her. And it made sense strategically. It was honestly like the only move they could have done, because me and my girlfriend probably had the biggest gap between challenge prowess of all the competitors on the show, though. So they were thinking, okay, we'll vote somebody out who's not the weakest at challenges, but definitely not the strongest, and hope that the strongest person on the other side switches places with her. And then we get rid of the strongest person on that.
So if they had knocked her out, she would have just switched with you, right? Is that the thought you're saying, or no? Or would she not have if they had voted her out?
They did vote her out. So they voted her out.
They voted you out. She would
just voted me out. She could have switched with me, and I would have had to take her place on her tribe. So it honestly, strategically, it doesn't make sense to switch with anybody, because you don't know the dynamic of that tribe on that side. So even if I would have switched places with her, she would have come to a tribe that I had built alliances with, not that she had built alliances with. So who's to say? Chances are that if you switched with your loved one would just be the next one voted out, and then you'd be doubly mad that you switched places with them in the first place.
Right. So she goes out, and now what? You go, and then you just like, was this one, you said this was, it's kind of funny. You had the cavalier attitude, nonchalant. You're really there for her almost, and just to go and have a little bit of fun. When did you turn it to like, I'm going to win this?
So she got voted out, and it pissed me off. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to get my revenge on everybody. I'm going to wreak havoc. And then also part of me was like, I have to now win to make it worth not switching with her. So she didn't want to switch with me. She was like, you're better at this stuff and you're in a good position. I don't know what your position is over there, but I'll never know, even if I switch with you. So you just play your game over there and I'll figure it out over here. Because she still had a chance to win her way back in the game. She just had to, do some challenges and stuff. And she ended up not winning her way back in the game. But around that point, I started buckling down a little bit. And then as I inched closer and closer to the finish line and it became more of reality, I would be that much more serious. And there was actually a point where I had like a stranglehold on the game, just like by its throat. And I wasn't letting anybody talk to anybody. And I wasn't so I was shutting down all conversation and making sure that my alliance was not ever talking to the other alliance. And we had the majority. And I was policing every conversation. And at some point, somebody in production said, hey, can you let some conversations happen? And I was just like, nah, I can't. And they're like,
sorry, bro.
Playing
for a million here.
And man. They're like, we need it because it's going to be boring for viewers if we don't at least have conversations about flipping the script. And I was like, yeah, but you allow those conversations and then all of a sudden somebody flips the script. And they're like, you have to let go for a second so we can get these conversations. I was like, I'm not going to. I'm sorry. Like I wish I could help you, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to let.
So that was it. You just said.
Said I have a stranglehold on this thing, and if I loosen my grip, it's going to wriggle free, and I'm not going to get it.
Yeah, you tell them, listen, write me a check, guarantee me $1 million, and I'll let people
and then I'll do whatever you want.
We can really party. All right, so you lock it up, you get it done, and then down the stretch, you do. Can you give me the payouts again? Give me like 5 through 1.
5 through 1. So first place, $1 million. Second place, 100K plus the 10K. So first place, $1 million plus the 10K. Second place, 100K plus the 10K.
What 10K? What's the plus 10K?
10K is the guaranteed. Okay. But the guaranteed is that you'll show up to the live finale. So if you show up to the live finale, you get 10K.
All right.
So, and that's for everybody. Third place, 85K plus the 10K. Fourth place, maybe like 75. And fifth place, like 65.
Wow. So it is a huge sweat. It's like daily fantasy winning the million versus second. It's just everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So Man, so what was the feeling when you actually won it? And I forget how it is. Is it a challenge, or like when it gets heads up, what is the actual way to decide the winner?
So there's 3 people usually as the finalists,
Okay.
and the people you voted out vote for who wins the millie. So they become the jury, and then you get to plead your case to the jury, and then they vote one of you 3 as the winner of the $1 million.
So there's still a lot of luck there too, right?
You have to stab people in the back, but lay them down gently enough that they're still willing to vote for you to win the millie.
That seems like a lot to go right.
That's a real balancing act right there. So that's, yeah.
So when they're voting, how did you feel in that spot when it goes down to, so it shows the show over at 3? That's how it works. And there's voting then?
Yep.
So you get down to 3, and now you're either getting $1.9 million, or essentially let's call it 100, just to make it easy. Between second and third, it's essentially the same. So what are you thinking when? How much time is in between that? Then once you get down to 3, you find out the next day? Is there another thing?
Live finale.
Oh, it's it. The show's over.
So you go 3. You go 3. You sit down in front of all these people. They're asking you questions. You're answering them. Then they go and vote. Then as soon as Jeff Probst goes, grabs the votes, and then he comes back and he's like, okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you in New York for the live finale, or LA for the live finale, wherever it's going to be. And then show's over. Then all of a sudden, all the camera guys jump out and they're like, that's a wrap. Thanks everybody. That was awesome. If you're one of the finalists, you're all dirty. You're standing up, shaking people's hand, giving people hugs, wondering if you won or not. And only like one guy supposedly knows how the votes are until that night, which can be months or even a year later.
How was that? How was that experience? So you got to be on the cloud 9. Like you roll out, you're rolling out of here, Philippines. This is where you did a mission. Your top 3.
One at that point, going into the last tribal council, I was feeling like kind of iffy, like maybe I'll win, maybe I won't. But then at tribal council, like the other 2 finalists kind of botched it, to be honest. And all the people in the jury were just like, Tyson, you're awesome. So at that point, I was kind of like, I feel like I won this. And so I was like 90 to 95% sure I had won $1 million at that point.
So how was it though? Like, so still, you basically think you got it. I mean, it's sort of like November 9, right? Like you finish, you make the final table, it's over. Now you got to wait and like come back. Well, so what was it like when they called it up on stage?
November 9 with half the chips. That's what it's like.
Yeah, exactly. Or 3-handed with half the chips, or 80% of the chips, or whatever, 90%. So what was that like though when they called your name? Did you was it like, do you remember that feeling? Because this is huge still. You could still get snubbed. You could still get effed. It still isn't in your bag. What was the feeling when they, like, right before? Was it just like you were just
What's the most money you've ever won, Jeff?
414,000.
Yeah, it felt like double that.
Right, 2.5 that feeling. Okay.
Where you're just like, part of you is just like, everything's gonna be okay. Like you're like, I know that things are gonna be okay from here on out financially. Like I can pay whatever debts, I can afford to do stuff. I have money to invest. I can, and it's for some reason, and that on top of winning a show that I had tried to win for like 4 or 5 years already at that point. And so there was a huge weight lifted off my shoulder in that capacity as well. And also me saying, I know I can win this show, and proving to myself that I could win this show. There's a lot emotionally and financially involved in it. And it was like a huge relief and release and closure. Like it was so many things. And I don't think that a lot of people who've only played the game once, and even only played the game once and won, don't know that feeling of losing the game multiple times before finally winning it.
Right. And yeah. And so how was that? How happy was with this is in 2013. So you went on the show afterward, right? But this is your girlfriend at the time, or no? Or when did you meet your now wife? Yeah,
this is my girlfriend, who is now my wife. And I met her in 2008 before I went on my first season. And then she went on the show with me. And then we won. We won that season, 2013. So.
And where did you guys meet?
We met through some mutual friends in Utah when we were living in Utah. And so it was good. And then at that point, then after that, I went on marriage boot camp and was just kind of doing like odds and ends, got into poker through Jason Somerville and the Run It Up events and stuff,
Yeah.
and doing a lot of stuff like that. And for me, I'm fortunate. Like I've played the game 4 times. I've turned it into kind of a career. I've been able to use it as a catalyst for a lot of my other projects, and it's given me a lot of opportunities. But it's not like all those doors have just been open for me. It's like I've kind of like made that happen and utilized my experiences and time on Survivor to get into other stuff.
It's very interesting you said, and how you say you've been on these other shows. Like, is it public information what that marriage show pays? Is everyone get the same thing, or is there's no winner, right? Is it just
there's no winner, so you just negotiate a fee, and based on how famous you are, you get paid more or less.
Interesting. So okay, so that's interesting. And now what I don't understand the last Survivor, you do get called back for winners at war. So this is all winners?
Yeah.
How is that compared to the other? How much more difficult? I see you got 11th. Well, where did that one take place?
That one was in Fiji. That was in Fiji last year. And difficult wise, it's not different as far as gameplay goes. Difficulty, it's not, but it is different in the fact that it's all returning players, and there's a lot more egos involved, and a lot more even like jealousy. Like, can you imagine like Phil Hellmuth going and sitting at a table and not having everyone want to get him out? That's just like, that's how it is. If you're a big Survivor player, a big Survivor personality, everybody there wants you out no matter what, just based on like jealousy and your reputation.
Yeah, and getting a second win's pretty sick. Who actually won that one?
Tony.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, and the last question I want to ask about Survivor, and I know, let me know if we have to literally do no questions. We're already at hour 45. I got a lot more I want to ask, and I do want to take at least one or two. So I'm sure, you know, but tell me about like when you get knocked out, what that experience is like, because you can't leave, right, for until the show's over. So what's the max time? Someone who goes out 20th, how long are they actually there hanging out?
They are going to be there. So they're usually there probably about close to 2 weeks, where they have to stay at, they call it Ponderosa, and it's the pregame camp where you arrived before the game started. So you go back there. Sometimes it's like a little resort thing. Sometimes it's just a camp set up with tents and stuff. In Fiji, it's a little resort place that has like an open bar, and then you can get whatever food you want and stuff. And you fill out a questionnaire about all your favorite foods, and they make sure to have all those favorite foods for you when you get voted out. And so if you're in 20th place, you go spend those weeks, and every 3 days, somebody else comes out from the game. And then when there's about half the people out, maybe like 8 people out or something, the jury starts to form. So the first people voted out aren't part of the jury. So once everyone that's pre-jury is out of the game, they send them on a what would it be called? Just a trip. They send them on a trip to like stay away from everybody.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's what happens. So I think so then, like, for example, like in Samoa, Boston Rob and myself got voted out pre-jury, and they sent us to Sydney, Australia for a handful of weeks till the show was finished. And then it's all expense paid trip to wherever. My wife, when she got voted out early, they sent her from the Philippines to Thailand to go on vacation with the rest of the pre-jury, which is fun. You get a cool vacation, but you're also on vacation with a bunch of bitter people from the show who got voted out early. So it's not always like a super positive experience, because everybody, especially if you have a couple enemies out there that all got voted out pre-jury, and then there's a lot of fighting on the trip, and it's
an interesting dynamic all of a sudden. What is there any story like after that though, or is it comfortable? Do you watch TV and stuff? You can't be on your phone, right? Or so what do they do with social media now and stuff?
They take your phones, they take everything away from you. You'd have no access to the internet. And then they have like a TV set up with like 1,000 DVDs to choose from. And then they have like a PlayStation and an Xbox and stuff. You can play video games if you want. They have a whole library of books you can choose from to read. And then you can go on day trips. You can go snorkeling and play in the ocean.
They make it pretty pleasant after that.
Yeah, it's a vacation.
And what show, like Amazing Race, for example, do you like that show? Is there any shows, if you Survivor, you're sort of the guy now, you've been it 4 times. What's the most anyone's done? Is it 4? Has anyone been on more?
Yeah, Rob's been on 5.
All right, and do you see more in the future? Is this some? Is this show? Does this have a shelf life, or is Survivor going for the next 80 years?
Uh, I think that it's with the host, Jeff Probst. Uh, I think he's going to like he'll be the deciding factor of when it ends, in the fact that like he is Survivor essentially. And so when he goes, I think it will be a little trickier to keep it on the air. They'll have to find a perfect replacement for him, and maybe like do something, maybe not with the format of the show, but end the show for a spell and then bring it back. Because I think that there's a lot of people that are excited about it and will be excited about it, but I think there will also be some disappointment when Jeff Probst leaves.
Interesting. He's got that. He's like Alex Trebek. He's just
Yes,
that
he's
strong.
the Alex Trebek of Survivor, correct?
That's strong of a presence. Yeah, that's. Have you seen all the Survivors now?
Probably most of them, maybe not all of them, but I've seen most of the seasons, or am at least familiar with how things shook out and stuff. But I watch all of them now, but I don't think I've seen all the old ones. There's like the dark ages of Survivor where there was like a handful of garbage seasons back to back to back. And so nobody really talks about those or brings those up or watches them. Yeah.
Season 1 was pretty incredible. I gotta say that was the show. Just the fact of being the first, right? And it was so unique and interesting. And yeah, I think that I do want to watch them. I got to go back and check. Where's the best place to watch them if you want to go look at them? Can you get them on Netflix, or where do you get to see it?
Yeah, so on Prime, Amazon Prime, you can see quite a few of them. Netflix just started showing some of the seasons. I think they have 3 seasons on Netflix. You can see CBS All Access is like $6 a month. You can watch all of them there.
Nice.
And Hulu, I think, has quite a few of them too.
All right, I see a question here. We'll do a couple, and if you got a jam, let me know. I do want to talk pickleball because that's fastest growing sport in America. I feel bad. I ordered some paddles, and you told me you are like Mr. Pickleball. We got to hit that before we leave. So, and real quick, this question about Survivor: can you have them go into detail about how to make a good video to apply? So you walk through this process at the beginning, but give me like just like the initial video sort of idea, like what you think would work now. What's sort of like the type of thing you should be looking to do?
Survivor is all personality. Like that is what they're looking for. A good backstory is great. A unique life experiences are great too, but that is what forms your personality essentially. So what they're looking for is the personality. They're looking for somebody who can be completely honest with who they are and what's in their head to a camera, because that's what makes good TV is honesty. That's what's relatable. So if you can exude your maximum personality and showcase that and be raw and open and honest, that's what they like. And so don't spend time with theatrics. Don't spend time with like some gimmick or anything like that. Literally sitting how we are and just saying, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm Tyson. I'm from Utah, born and raised Mormon. I'm 41. I not really Mormon anymore, but whatever. I don't really care about it that much. Went on a Mormon mission, swam in college. Anyways, here's why I think I'd be good for the show, and, delve into some of that stuff. Like, for example, it's just kind of like, hey, I've been pulled over hundreds of times, literally gotten a speeding ticket only one of all those times, always talked my way out of it. Like, I think that's a talent I have, is talking my way out of tight spots, and I've always defused things with humor. I'm pretty punchable, but I've never been punched, and part of that is because I always diffuse the situation after I escalate it. Like something like along those lines, where you're giving life experiences and reasons as to why you would win, not just saying you'll win, but proving how and why you would win.
Does it help to have any type of, I guess, because like thinking about it from JRB, Ronnie Barta, Garrett, guys that have like some sort of known presence at all? Like, are they looking for people that are sort of known, or makes no difference, or a little mixture? Like, what's their formula?
They mostly don't want people that are known. It's I think.
Is there a point where you're too well known, like you couldn't get on the show if you wanted to, or is it?
No, but I think that a lot of people aren't willing to take 5 weeks off. Like, if you're a famous actor, can you afford to take 5 weeks off and go play?
Exactly. Yeah, it's actually kind of. I was going to ask you that too about your kids. How is that when you go away for 5 weeks with the? Or how did you do that with when you and your girlfriend are at the time? Okay, because couldn't really. It's difficult now, right, to go away.
And so this last time I did, I have my 2 kids, and One of them turned 4 while I was out there, and one of them wasn't even 1. And so that's a tricky age with kids to leave like that, because the 4-year-old has no concept of time. Like me saying I'm going to be gone for almost 2 months doesn't mean she doesn't comprehend what 2 months is, how long 55 days is, whatever, Yeah. And so that's hard. And I knew that was going to be hard. And then the 1-year-old, it's like, is she even going to remember me after 2 months when I come back? And that was like really difficult. It would be much easier to go with older kids who understood what I was doing,
right?
Or no kids at all. And so that was tricky. Although one of my demands to go back on the show was actually to have my 4-year-old be my loved one's visit out there. So we got my 4-year-old daughter did come out to Fiji and visit me on TV.
Very cool. That helps a bit. Yeah, because that is tricky. I can't imagine. Let's rapid fire a couple things here. Twitch. You do have a Twitch. You do some streaming?
Yeah. So Boston Rob and myself do a channel called Rob versus Tyson. We play Survivor trivia on there. We play some Among Us, which is fun to watch Rob navigate video games because he is not a techie guy. And then we also host our own online strategy social game called Expedition Online, and it's pretty entertaining. And we are doing that tonight, so you could visit us tonight. And then, yeah, so we've been doing that. We've been grinding and working on that. It's been going pretty good, and we're going to plan on adding more and more content. We're just kind of getting going and dipping our toe in the Twitch waters. I know you've been there for a long time. Yep. So we're just testing the waters and trying to do some new stuff on there that hasn't been done before. And yeah.
I just added you on Twitch. I can't believe I knew you did it a little bit. I didn't know you were doing it more consistently. So I just added you, and I will check that out. You said you're going on tonight?
Tonight. Yeah. They're already live right now. I think with, the reunion show, we gave $1,000 away to the winner of Expedition Online, and we're going to run a second season of it.
That's amazing. Well, I will check that out. I'm actually going to stream a charity event here right as soon as we're done too tonight. And then you have the website. Look at that. You're looking out, you're doing pickleball, poker, and nature. That's a nice combo. Looks like you got some gear, and you actually have some rackets and such. I feel sad because I did just order rackets, so I'm going to get more. I'm going to give gifts, and tell me what people can do. What should they do? Because pickleball is amazing.
Yeah. So you go to gammasports.com.
Okay.
And at checkout, plug in Tyson 20, and you'll get 20% off everything. So that Hellbender is their newest paddle. That's what I play with. I love it. But there's a lot of different paddles. This is a paddle that's like a pretty good balance of power and touch. I know a lot of poker guys are getting into pickleball, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. And so, yeah.
I got to get you connected with some of these. I actually know. So have you ever been in Cabo? Have you been to El Dorado, or do you know of like Chileno Bay and some places? So I know some guys that are developing places. They're so obsessed with pickleballs. They make stadiums at all their places, and that's what, like I hate saying stuff like this because it honestly sounds pretty. It sounds bad. I think it's a kind of a name drop, like whatever. But I went to Bill's 50th birthday on Necker Island. Okay.
Yep.
And Richard Branson's island, he was there during this, happened to be there. He's there sometimes on the island. I was talking with him a bit. There was a tennis tournament. It was a lot of fun. And I started chatting with him, and then I've been emailing with him a little bit, and he wanted to bring pickleball to Necker Island. And he actually asked me for one of his, and then I got in touch with one of his team there, and they were asking me about pickleball. Cause I was like, look, I know, they built these at these places. I know my friend's done them, blah, blah, blah. I need to connect you because they're looking for, like, in terms of the gear, the rackets. I know you're the expert. We got to get you to Necker Island is what I'm trying to say. We got to set up a pickleball tournament and get out there because I know you're the guy. You are the pickleball master.
The foremost pickleball influencer on the internet. And that is true.
And it's the fastest growing sport in America. Hank Haney, Tiger Woods' former golf coach, he's the one who first told me about it. I played him in person at one of these places, and he just swears by it. And he'll tell me it's the fastest growing sport in America. And I hear about it. I see it. Shout out to Hank Haney, Meldman, Discovery Properties, and pickleball. And Tyson, I will use your stuff. I'm going to order some rackets for the holidays for someone, because you just got to do it. It's just a great sport, great exercise. It's fun. It's less abrasive and crazy than tennis. It's one of those things with like your girlfriend or your wife that, that you can play with them. Like tennis, it's a little too crazy. Here, it's like able to kind of play, I feel like, more
and
like
it's
tennis.
all about the fast game.
Yes.
Pickleball is all about the slow game till you get your opportunity to speed the game up. And so it's a lot of patience and then a kill.
It's beautiful. Can we do a couple? I know you got to go. We're at 2 hours, Tyson. Tell me how many questions we can take, because there's a lot. But you call the magic number, and we're going to cut it off there, because I can't quit you. You got to quit me.
Okay, let's do 2, and then I got to take off.
You got it. Okay.
I got 10 minutes left.
Okay. So right off the top, most difficult challenge in your life.
In my life?
Yeah.
Man, that's tricky.
We're going deep, Tyson.
Yeah, we are going deep, because there's a lot. I mean, kids are a challenge. That's like the long challenge kind of every day. It's a little challenging to some degree, but it's also super rewarding. Most difficult challenge, pro cycling was hard too. But I think man, I don't know. I think for me, the most difficult challenge of my life was quitting pro cycling. And that was just because I knew how much I'd put into it, and I knew what my potential was, and I didn't feel like I'd reached my potential, but I didn't know that if I could reach my potential, just because it was so physically and mentally demanding. Right. And so that was a battle that a year and a half, I raced thinking how and if I could quit this sport, and then finally convinced myself that I would quit for a little while and come back to it. And I never came back to it. And in that moment, it was really hard, I would say. But looking back and watching pro racing now, I do miss the racing, but I do not miss all the stuff you don't see, right. Like all behind the scenes travel, all the work that has to be put into it, everything else. So that probably was the most challenging thing.
I would have to imagine too, a lot of great experience, right? To be young and travel across Europe and team aspect, and you probably a lot of good memories and cool people you met in that time. All right, this question I like too. Which needs more luck for winning, poker or Survivor? Let's just take a comparable field size of like a 20-person tournament.
I think it depends, because Survivor, you may only get one shot at it your entire life. And I think that Survivor, if it's field size only, I mean, it's not comparable even, because a 20-person tournament isn't going to last 39 days, So I think Survivor is definitely going to take more luck, because it's long and drawn out and longer, and there's more variables with all the advantages and the personalities. And I think especially at higher stakes poker, or when you're playing with a lot of experienced players, they all play within certain parameters for the most part, as far as like what hands they're playing pre-flop, from what position, etc. And so with Survivor, you're playing with all these personalities, and some of them have no strategic chops or don't care about that and are just playing emotional or whatever. And you have to, all of that is much different and much more difficult to navigate. So I think Survivor requires a lot more luck.
Makes sense. Tyson 12 or Tyson 20 for that promo code?
Tyson 20 for that promo code.
That is for this year, guys. So again, pickleball, if you haven't got it, check it out. A lot of areas they have pickleball courts. You'd be surprised. You might think I haven't heard of this, but might be at your local tennis, or
it's everywhere.
They're popping up literally everywhere. All right, I want to do it, guys. Tyson will see. He sees you on Twitter. He can read through some of these. Maybe he'll hopefully answer some. I'm sorry we didn't spend more time here. I got fired up. Tyson's got everything of the makings of he's been on Survivor multiple times, being on the podcast multiple times. That would be nice too. We'll wait until you win the next Survivor. I mean, you think you'll be on another? Is that a likely scenario at this point?
I mean, it's hard to turn down a 1 in 20 shot at $1 million. It is hard to say yes, but it would be harder to say no at this point.
Is it harder for you to do now though, because you've you've got your business site, you've got some incomes, you do other stuff, you have your family. That 5 weeks is not easy, right? And like your young kids as well to do it. And like, it's a real 5 weeks is not a joke.
And
that's not something,
I'm not as physically fit. I'm not I don't rebound from stuff like that like I used to. And so, yeah, there's a lot. It's definitely takes its toll on me more than it did in the past. But I think if they wanted me back and the timing was right and the circumstances correct, I could go back 1 or 2 more times.
you'd get in there, right? You're not going to say no. That's how can you? So, all right, I'm going to copy this link and I'm going to let you tell me someone's going to win a $111 ticket from Party. You're eligible, Tyson. So you tell me when.
When?
All right. Well, things don't work. Technology's hard. It didn't work. We had let me try this. I'll try this one. Didn't work. I'm going to do a different one. We're going to do it. Someone's going to win $111. I can tell you that one way or the other. I'll find a way. I'll just pick someone if I have to, but hold on. That was the first time that didn't happen. Let me go here. Let me try it again. And let's try this one. There's always backups, Tyson. We got just like if you had said no, they're going to go to someone else. The show has to go on. If you don't make it, if you say you can't come, someone's going on Survivor. All right, let's do it. You tell me when again. I'm going to try this one.
One more time. Ready now.
All right. This one looks like it's loading. There's a lot of interaction, a lot of engagement. This is a good tool for you. This is a Twitch treat.
Like it. I've seen it.
It's you take the tweets, you take the URL, and then you could do a giveaway within it. And then you go to here. There's actually this or another one. This is the other one I prefer, but this is called Competition Agency. Go to Tweet Draw. And then based on anyone who engaged, we pick the winner and they're going to load up. And here it is. 1, 2, 3. User is right here. And boom. Joe Gall.
Joe Gall. Congrats, dude.
He hasn't won it before. 111 ticket, courtesy of, I spelled that wrong. Tyson. I'm going to message him in a second. We're going to leave that aside. I want to say goodbye to you. I also want to say about poker that you are, what's your poker playing these days? And are you looking for a deal, a sponsorship? What's the deal? Are we going to see you representing a brand? Because you were kind of on a poker bender. You were in Reno. Yeah, I got to shout out Jason Somerville. The reason I know you and running up Reno, what an event. COVID's crazy. What's your poker appetite these days?
I've been playing some online poker, just staying sharp and also doing some studying. And I'm always open for some sponsorship. You know that, Jeff. And I mean, with the weird 2020 that it is, I prefer to play live than online because I think my personality goes a long way, even at the poker table. And I have fun live playing. And that's the reason I got into it in the first place, is for enjoyment. And so, yeah, I will get back out there in the poker streets. I haven't been as present just because 2020 got in the way. But as soon as everything is good to go again, I will definitely be out there. And yeah, and then other things I got coming up. I do the VIP game nights. I don't know if you're aware of those, where I play game nights with fans, and that's on VIPGameNights.com. Okay. And I just released a New Year's Eve game that we're going to be playing Among Us with fans on New Year's Eve. So if you want to celebrate New Year's Eve with me, it might be on VIP Game Nights right now, and it might not, but I think it is somewhere, maybe not. But you can have a look there. There's only going to be 9 seats available, so that's going to sell out pretty quick. And then next week, I am playing trivia with host Jeff Platt for toys for children this holiday season. And so you can join and play trivia and donate money to give to the cause, and make sure that kids who are less fortunate will also have an exciting and memorable Christmas this year.
Amazing. That is very cool. Not to be confused with Jeff Probst. Jeff Platt also does a great job hosting. He's been burst on the poker scene and mixing it up. So shout out to Jeff and Tyson, man. Always a pleasure. Again, I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I just didn't even get to dive into a lot of my I feel my dad's questions were so fiery, man. Let's see. He gave me a couple. What's that?
I said you had to get to all of your dads, dude.
I know, I just want to read one.
Let's hear it.
Can I read one?
Yeah.
All right. This is he said, do you have any shame? You willingly creating lies and seem to have no remorse. Where did this attitude come from? and then question mark, you're a Mormon exclamation point. Just hearing this out of my dad's mouth makes me like, honestly, like it's so wild. I'm gonna have to call him. It is his birthday. I told you I gotta talk to him and say, Dad, listen, it's a game. This is how games work. This is also why my dad's not a great poker player. He doesn't have that gear to shift it up and go for it. You know, like he wouldn't check raise me, for example. So, you know, so can you maybe
check raise you? Once he got check raised enough, he would eventually check raise.
Right.
That's the thing. That's how this is. I mean, we could send him out on Survivor the first time. Somebody close to him would slit his own throat. He'd be pissed and he'd go back out for blood and vengeance. And that's the way.
T-Show. He knows this guy, T-Show. He's a very good guy. They're friends, but can't play with him the poker table. It's too intense for him. So you're right. This is what he needs. He needs like some very tough love, very tough experience. I think he could sharpen up a bit. So yeah.
And I mean, you have to separate the game from real life, and that's just like, some people aren't built for it, and some people are too kind and aren't willing to take that step to win that game. But like, if you are committing yourself to going out there, you may as well win the game, right?
Yes. Can I ask one more? Honestly, I can't even believe these. I have to call him after this. These are crazy. These questions, I think, are what people want on podcasts. Like, here we go. All right. Professional athlete background. You were on a swimming athletic scholarship at BYU, and then you became a professional cyclist after college, quote, not graduating. What other sports have you played? Were you really talented, or you just work hard, or lie your way onto the team? All right, I'm embarrassed for you. This guy's a crusher. He's a Survivor champion. My dad loves Survivor. I think I gotta tell him how much I really do appreciate you as a person, because like these are intense questions.
I like them. I mean, I honestly, I get questions like this. These aren't the first questions like this.
Right. I don't have it in me to ask something like that, and I don't. Well, also I know you, so I can't. Like, I feel like asking like this is like disgenuine to what I believe, you know, because I know you're a great guy. So like when I asking a question, like I couldn't just sit here and like cold faced ask you like that question. It was just it's not genuine to me
either. That's the thing, is like the safety net of like text and social media and stuff really makes it easier for people to be bold and ask bold questions, which is good, can be good. Athletics wise, we went over this earlier. I was always gifted with endurance, but that was it. And I had to work hard for all the other stuff. So like soccer, I was great at soccer, but it was my endurance where like I could play a full game without having to take an out, and it could run the whole field, no problem, nonstop the whole game. Baseball was the same. Like I just hustled and kept hustling. But then the sports like cycling is an endurance sport. So I did have to hone some skills, but cycling and swimming kind of were more my speed. I was a distance swimmer. So I just had to learn technique, and my body was built for just going at 80% for as long as I could versus going 100% for a short period of time.
Very, very cool. All right. Well, Tyson, I do appreciate the time, man. This was a lot of fun. I hope we get to do this again, and hopefully we'll be able to run it up Reno or some poker event soon. And yeah, man, I again, thank you for the time, and enjoy the time with the family. I 2 kids. Congrats on that. And love that you did get married, and I can't wait to see you in real life after COVID, man. It's been too long. So thank you so much. And pickleball, I'm going to work at it. I'm definitely a little rusty. I need to get a little better before we play, but I do feel like it's a fun game, and we can battle a bit in the future. That'll be good too.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. Say hi to your dad for me. And thank you. I can't wait to see you in person.
Tyson, can you wish my dad a happy birthday today?
Yeah, it is his birthday, huh? What's his name?
Richard.
Happy birthday, Richard, dear. Happy days will come to you all year. If I had a wish, then it would be a happy birthday to you from me.
Wow, what a sport. All right, Dad, you hear that? You gotta realize he's a good guy, man. Come on, that's unbelievable. All right, Tyson, thank you so much, and we'll chat soon, man. Thanks a lot.
Take care. See you, man.
All right, guys, that was Tyson Apostol, Survivor champion, and also plays poker. He's going on a stream. Check him out. We put that there. You got the pickleball. If you want the rackets, Tyson20 is a code. We had that website up as well. And I am going to be live on Twitch here for a charity event with James Blake and Lasso very soon. So join me on Twitch, or join Tyson. Join somebody. Go on Twitch. We'll see you guys a little later. Thanks for watching. More podcasts to come. Appreciate you guys. That was fun.